Chapter 8:13. A claw that could cover half of Harry's body lashed out at him. Harry, who was trying his best to dodge, felt a gust of wind as sharp as a steel knife as it brushed past his body. The claw covered in dark black dragon scales tore through the armor curse that Hermione had cast on Harry. Harry felt his right side burning, as if blood was seeping out from the surface of his skin. Harry spun around like a top before crashing into a tree and coming to a stop. His ribs were burning, and he was not sure how many of them were broken. "Malfoy!" Harry roared. "You have no idea how dangerous that book is. It's controlling your soul." "My soul?" Malfoy, who had turned into a dragon, mocked. "You know nothing about the power of the Black Scripture of the Dead. Harry, you stole that book too, didn't you?" The black dragon's face showed a vivid expression of mockery. He looked Harry in the eye and said, "Otherwise, you would not know where I obtained the Black Scripture of the Dead. So, the Golden Scripture of the Sun is in your hands." Harry was silent, but Malfoy laughed maniacally. "You shameless thief! Harry, can't you resist the desire to steal? If a poor man like you doesn't steal, how can you live like this? Dad was right. Every pauper is a potential thief. You also obtained one of the two scriptures, but you did not put in the effort to pursue the power of these two books. I bet, Harry, that you did not even consult the professors about the magical knowledge in these two books. This is the difference between you and me, Harry. Opportunities are only given to those who are prepared. You cannot imagine the power of that book. That is the power to open the door to the world of darkness. It is the power of the world's oldest existence of darkness. Now, let me show you the difference between us." Malfoy showed a sarcastic smile. He opened his dragon mouth and used the unique breath of a dragon to make a long, complex chant. A human's voice would never be able to make a sound that included infrasonic and ultrasonic wave. The rays of the sun that had just shone down from the east dimmed in an instant. The moon in the west shone brightly, sprinkling blood-red moonlight. The moonlight and the first rays of dawn intertwined, weaving a world that did not belong to day or night. The black dragon bathed in the moonlight. It used magic and shadows to create a strange power. Harry only felt a strong rush in his heart, and his body's instinctive reaction made him roll to avoid the deadly knife behind him. It was his own shadow waving at him, as if the shadow had no concept of volume. In the forbidden forest, the dense shadows of the branches on the ground began to dance, just like when the branches fluttered in the wind. Countless shadows, long and short like bayonets, rotated like gears. The shadows on the ground suddenly stretched out like javelins, stabbing towards Harry. The shadows had no mass, no substance, but they were like the sharpest knives and spears, with a deadly edge. Harry raised his wand and shouted, "Photo!" The tip of the wand emitted a blinding light, stabbing towards Malfoy like an arrow. There was no place for shadows to hide around him, and the light pierced the black dragon's scales, only leaving an inconspicuous white spot. It could not hurt Malfoy at all. The black dragon only smiled coldly. It flapped its wings, and a strong wind blew towards Harry and Hermione like an arrow, preventing them from advancing. With the help of the blood moon, the black dragon's huge body flew lightly into the sky. Harry was surprised to find that the trees in the forbidden forest above him seemed to have come to life, waving their branches to stop them from flying. The black dragon, who had already arrived above Harry, roared angrily and spat out a black poisonous fog. The cone-shaped poisonous fog covered Harry's position in the blink of an eye. Wherever the poisonous fog went, the crisp grass and trees withered in the blink of an eye. The poisonous fog, which was cursed and highly toxic, turned everything into shadows within the fog. The trees and the beasts in the forbidden forest all seemed to melt, their rich colors fading away, leaving behind thick black remains that looked like twisted shadows. When the poisonous fog covered a large part of the nearby forest, the black dragon spat out ink-like tiny particles of life, igniting the poisonous fog below. In the blink of an eye, the large part of the forest where Harry was burned by the black poisonous fire. It was not the high-temperature dragon fire, nor the acidic and negative dragon fire, but the fire of entropy that destroyed the order of heat, destroying the structure of materials and energy, and melting them into a pool of chaos. In the poisonous fog, Harry tried to use the armor spell to protect himself, but in the blink of an eye, the spell was contaminated by the poison. At the most critical moment, the Golden Sun Sutra in Harry's arms released a golden light of the sun that enveloped the surrounding area, blocking the poisonous fog. Harry hurriedly rushed to where Hermione was, where the silver light emitted from the tip of the wand was in danger. The silver otter protecting Hermione had already faded into a faint light, and the poisonous black had silently infected the guardian. The otter raised its head and looked at Harry, revealing a reluctant look. At the moment when Harry hugged Hermione, the light of the otter melted in the black fog, and Hermione also blended in. Harry could feel that the guardian did not disappear, but the pure soul that represented the guardian had died in the poisonous fog. Malfoy had created the black dragon's poison with the help of the power of the dark world, and it had even poisoned the guardian to death. Harry placed the Golden Sun Sutra between him and Hermione, but he did not notice that part of Hermione's shadow was exposed to the poisonous fog. Soon, Harry saw that Hermione's face was suffused with death and gray. Only then did he notice that Hermione's shadow that was exposed to the poisonous fog had also been poisoned to death. The adult Hermione was taller than Harry, and her shadow's head extended beyond the protection of the Golden Sun Sutra and died in the poisonous fog. Harry could feel Hermione's life slipping away in his arms, but he did not know how to stop it. Wounds could be healed, life could be replenished, and souls could be summoned, but without a shadow, how could he treat it? No! Harry hugged Hermione and whispered, "There must be a way. The shadow is not that important. The Golden Sun Sutra must have a way. The souls of the dead can be summoned, and the dead can be resurrected, but why would a person die without a shadow?" He desperately tried to recall the poem in the Golden Sun Sutra, and his body trembled. 11 Suddenly, he heard Fawkes's voice coming from above him. Harry looked up in surprise and saw the rapidly approaching phoenix in the distance. The phoenix lingered outside the poisonous fog, not daring to come close, but in the blink of an eye, a ray of sunlight shone from the observatory of Hogwarts. The phoenix, bathed in golden light, flew to Harry's head and landed on Hermione's chest. A crystal tear fell on her chest. The tear of a phoenix was the best healing potion material. It dispelled the black fog on Hermione's face, but it could not dispel the smell of death that gradually enveloped her. Fawkes whined and showed a human-like expression of sadness. It flew around Hermione and Harry's heads twice, and then left the place with a sad cry. Harry was almost speechless. He twitched in pain and clutched Hermione's hand tightly. At this time, the poisonous fire above their heads had fallen, and the surroundings had become a sea of fire. The light of the Golden Sun Sutra was getting dimmer and dimmer. Under the burning of the poisonous fire, nothing could withstand it for long. They could no longer see their surroundings. The black flames burned like purgatory, and the vicious flames licked everything in the area, killing any living existence in the area. The soil on the ground turned to ashes, and even the morning light and moonlight lost their vitality. In the vast sea of fire, only a little light of the Golden Sun Sutra was still holding on, but it was also on the verge of collapse. Harry heard footsteps coming from behind him. A man covered in a black robe separated the flames and came to Harry. He reached out and placed something in front of Harry. He took out a time converter and placed it in front of Hermione's chest. Harry could feel the man looking at him, but he could not tell what he was feeling. Sorrow, nostalgia, indifference, fear. Harry looked at the thing left behind by the mysterious man. It was the key to the Golden Sun Sutra and the Black Sutra of the Dead. It was a polygonal switchbox. Harry happened to know how to use it. He twisted it slightly, and 7 leaf-like corners popped out of the box. He pressed the 7-pointed star-shaped key on the Golden Sun Sutra. The teeth marks on the key matched perfectly, and with a click, the Golden Sun Sutra suddenly opened by itself. Under the morning light, the pages were flowing with a brilliant golden light. Chapter 8:14. Harry watched as the Golden Solar Sutra glowed brightly. He parted the sea of fire and carried Hermione to the Black Dragon. "Harry, I've underestimated you," Malfoy said in disbelief. "I didn't expect you to awaken the power of the Solar Sutra, but it's useless. Both books will eventually fall into my hand." Harry raised his wand. Malfoy fall unconscious. The light from the Solar Sutra wrapped around his wand, and the power of the curse turned into a ray of sunlight that shot towards Malfoy's heart. The sun that had stopped rising under the power of the Black Sutra of the Dead suddenly shone brightly, tearing through the dark sky created by the Black Sutra of the Dead. "This? Impossible!" Malfoy roared in disbelief. He tried to control the power of the Black Sutra of the Dead in vain, trying to stop the power that completely suppressed his black magic, but it was all in vain. Just as Malfoy's heart was hit by the curse, and his mind was dizzy and on the verge of collapsing, Harry's heart suddenly tightened. The black-robed man who had given him the key to the Solar Sutra appeared behind Malfoy again. Avada Death! The black-robed man's curse struck Malfoy. "No!" Harry shouted. Malfoy's soul floated up. He stared blankly at his own corpse, then at the black-robed man in confusion. Suddenly, he seemed to have understood something. He shouted something at Harry, but the soul had no voice. The most important thing was that his soul returned to its home and disappeared into thin air. When Harry returned to school, the observatory was empty. When he returned to the headmaster's office, Harry found Dumbledore there. He hugged Hermione and wanted to tell the old man everything, but Dumbledore stopped him. "Harry, you don't have to tell me. I know everything," he said in a hoarse voice. He looked at Hermione's unconscious corpse and put her down, letting her lean against the chair in the headmaster's office. He whispered to Harry, who was about to say something, "I know Malfoy is dead, and Granger has returned from the future. And I know that Granger has returned from the future. But Harry, promise me, if one day you must kill me, do not hesitate." Harry could not understand. "Why? That is a very difficult and heavy burden. I shouldn't let you bear it." Dumbledore shed tears as he grabbed Harry's hand and said firmly, "But promise me, when the time comes, don't hesitate, you must kill me." Harry was going crazy. "Why? Hermione said that I will kill you, Ron, and Snape in the future. It's not hard for me to understand, but why are you forcing me like this, Professor? When Hermione told me, I thought I'd never do that. I couldn't be that kind of person. It's precisely because it's impossible that you have to do this." Dumbledore gripped Harry's hand, trembling slightly, and repeated, "Promise me, promise me." Harry was about to go crazy, but then he saw Ron. It was Ron, who had grown up. His red hair was still messy. He pushed the door open and came in, his face covered in tears. "Harry!" Ron turned around and hugged him, but Harry was at a loss. Ron, who was already an adult, was hugging the skinny Harry. The scene was somewhat comical. After Ron calmed down, he said to Harry, "Promise Professor Dumbledore, and when necessary, you know that time, when you attack me, don't show any mercy." "That's impossible." Harry pushed Ron away and replied emotionally, "I can't do such a thing." "But you have to," Ron replied. "If you don't do this, we will disappear because this world is a one-way universe. At that time, you will forget me now, forget Hermione. So, for our own good, you have to kill us." Harry woke up with a start and said in horror, "So, the shadow that killed Malfoy. It's not him." Dumbledore's eyes showed deep guilt. He sighed. "Don't ask, Harry. You will understand later." Dumbledore looked at the watch in his arms and whispered, "I don't have much time. What about you?" Ron replied, "I've set aside some time. It's still a long time before it's my turn." He hammered Harry's chest and laughed. I want to have a good talk with Harry. You're too young now. Snape doesn't want to come, but I think when you kill him, you won't show any mercy. Don't say such a terrible thing, Harry said anxiously. What happened? I can't tell you. Ron hesitated. At this time, Dumbledore suddenly said to Ron, You can't take up too much of his time. Go. Go back and wait. I think he has something to say to you too. Ron showed a complicated look. I've misunderstood him for a long time. Ron turned his head and said to Harry, If in the future I misunderstood you and scolded you, I want to say sorry now. I've already said it in advance, so you can't blame me. After saying that, Ron left without looking back. Dumbledore pointed at the time converter on Hermione's chest. Hermione's body disappeared in front of Harry's eyes. Dumbledore hurriedly said, Harry, remember, we're all behind you. All sacrifices are valuable. After saying that, he pulled Ron away without looking back, ignoring Harry's shouts and pursuit. Chin Ong and Dumbledore watched all this secretly. Dumbledore was a little agitated. He asked, in all of this, the one who suffered the most, experienced the most and didn't understand the most is Harry. He's also the one who sacrificed the most. Does it have to be like this? You don't have a choice. In this world, Harry Potter is special. Only his time and fate can break that existence's control over your world. So everyone must die in his hands. Your destiny. Using the words of Eastern magic to explain it, it is fate. Give it to him, and he will represent this world to create the Morbius time cycle. Due to special reasons, this world is a unidirectional universe. There are no parallel worlds. The Well of Eternity is the mechanical hub of this world's time cycle in the future. It is also the only key to fixing time in this universe's time, fate, cause and effect. In the future I created with Morgatha's extraordinary power, you, Hermione, and Ron will return to the present. As the first cause, I will make Harry the next Dark Devil King. I will create the unidirectional universe's grandmother paradox. I will make the universe under the control of that existence called the Lord God collapse into a ring-shaped universe so that we can get rid of its control. Then, in the next cycle, I will break the ring-shaped fate, expand the unidirectional universe into a multiverse, and open up the ring-shaped world line into a spiral world line. In the anchor coordinates of the Lord God, Harry is the most important one, followed by Ron and Hermione, followed by you, Voldemort, Snape, and the other professors and wizards. In order for this world to break free from the Lord God's anchor, these coordinates must participate in the time cycle. But to prevent the expansion of variables, the anchor coordinates must be restrained. In other words, when the Lord God interferes with this world, only one coordinate, Harry, can exist. All of you must die. In the future I created. Chin Ang's gaze turned to the mysterious black-robed man. He took off his hood. If Harry was here, he would be shocked. The lightning scar on his forehead, and the eyes and brows that were extremely similar to his, it was clearly him after he grew up. The future Harry killed Ron and traced Hermione's time converter to the present. He handed the key to the current Harry, and then killed Malfoy. He is the fourth Dark Lord. In the future, he will walk as the fourth Dark Lord. When Harry does not have an alibi, he will act as the Dark Lord. He will remove the anchor points one by one. Then when the current Harry is in the 7th grade, he will find an opportunity to kill you in front of everyone. Dumbledore nodded. Then Harry will go back to find the real murderer. In the process, the future Harry will use the name of the current Harry to kill his friends and family. Finally, when Harry finds him, the two will have a predestined showdown, and the current Harry will kill him, completing the cycle. At that time, the future Harry will be responsible for telling him everything, and I will come to the future in advance to fill in the gaps. Chen Ong smiled. Then, let's go. The two tore open the space and came to the Hall of Hogwarts. There, Harry held his wand and looked at himself on the ground in shock. Harry was so shocked that when he looked back and saw Dumbledore, he was not more surprised. Professor? Harry's mind was a little fuzzy. He opened his mouth to ask something, but he quickly calmed down because he saw that Dumbledore seemed younger, especially the phoenix feather on Dumbledore's chest. He was in a trance for a moment and hesitated. The past professor? The professor on the day Malfoy died? He turned to look at Chen-Ong and whispered, "Morgoth." "Yes," Chen-Ong said calmly. "We are here to explain everything." Dumbledore told Harry the truth of the world. He whispered, "This world is a cage, an unspeakable existence flipping back and forth. For freedom and dignity, for the sake of saving this world, we must all pay the price." Dumbledore showed Harry the memories of the reincarnators in this world. He said sadly to Harry, "So, we put everything on your shoulders. In order to break the control of that existence, we must destroy the anchor point and use a new power to take this world away from him. So, with the help of Morgoth, we used you to destroy the anchor point." Harry asked, "What is the anchor point?" Dumbledore said in silence, "It is us. So, you must kill everyone, your friends, your family, everything we care about, until all the anchor points are concentrated on you. Then, you will complete the cycle of time. When you have all the anchor points, we will use the power of the Well of Eternity to send you back to the day you killed Malfoy. You need to give the key to your past self." As he spoke, Chen-Ong threw the key to Harry. "Then, kill Malfoy. As the fourth Black Devil, kill those who must be killed by you, including Ron and me, Snape and your mother. By doing so, there will be a paradox in this world. When everything ends and the God Lord wants to restart, he will realize that he can't do it. Because if he doesn't allow you to return to the past, then you will die under Malfoy's hands that day. No one will impersonate you to kill Dumbledore, and you won't become the Black Devil. At that time, the power of the cycle of time will force him to put the anchor point, which is you, put back to the past, and by doing so, this world will be locked in an infinite cycle of time. There will be no future. Whenever the Lord Creator wants to end this world, it will automatically restart." Harry was completely dumbfounded. He looked at his future self and smiled. His soul gradually dissipated. He could not help but kneel on the ground and cry bitterly. Dumbledore said with the same sorrow, "But this is the last time. Harry, this is the last time. Soon, we will be able to break the cycle, and let this world, let the future become free. We will be the stones stuck in the gears of the Lord God's operation. With us as the price, everything will not be under the control of the Lord Creator. The Well of Eternity will fix the time of this world to the 7 years of your schooling. Time will continue to cycle, but the wizards and muggles of this world will be free. They will find that only the material world is renewed once every 7 years. Their souls and wills will not be manipulated. And, Harry, the souls of all the people you killed will be preserved in the Golden Sun Sutra. When that time comes, you can resurrect them and let them be completely free in the new world." Harry wanted to say something, but after a moment of hesitation, he shook his head and said, "I understand. When they are resurrected, let them forget this memory." Dumbledore nodded silently. Chen-Ong and him returned to the normal timeline. They were walking in the hallway of the headmaster's office. When Harry rushed out and saw Dumbledore, he looked like he had seen a ghost. He stammered, "Professor, didn't you come from there?" His eyes stopped on the phoenix feather on Dumbledore's chest, and for some reason, he firmly remembered it. In the timeline, Chen-Ong gazed at the unidirectional universe that had already been connected into a ring, watching it slowly separate from the Lord God's complicated system. Suddenly, he laughed and said, "Another laboratory has been built. If I keep poaching the Lord God like this, I'm afraid he'll turn against me. It's time to return." Chapter 8:15. Wang Chen felt like he had passed through a long period of darkness. His spirit was blurry, as if he had lived longer than his life. All he could remember was a click and the soft sound of a mechanical lock opening. That muddle-headedness gradually left him. He could vaguely see a white light before his eyes, and a vague voice reached his ears. "Am I dead? I don't think so." In his memory, fireballs fell from the sky and burned everywhere as if doomsday had come. He stood on the street in despair, waiting for death to come. But what happened next? I don't remember. He seemed to be lying in a narrow but comfortable iron box. Is it a coffin? He should thank the country for not cremating him. Wang Chen had woken up, but he did not want to open his eyes. Now, someone was talking in his ear. A young boy whose voice had not changed yet said fearfully, "Master, the great heavenly Lord Wei Xing's body coffin is glowing. It's the great heavenly Lord of Salvation's Dharma body." An old voice was heard, followed by the sound of him slapping the boy's scalp. "You rascal!" Then, the old voice scolded, "Everyone told me that this iron coffin is the most precious treasure of our Mao Mountain lineage. It is an ancestral magical item. Our Mao Mountain's patriarch had obtained this coffin of the Celestial Lord of Salvation, the life-sustaining Celestial Lord of Salvation, and that was how he came to understand the art of refining and controlling corpses. How dare you touch the ancestral magical item? I will beat you to death, you evil disciple." "Didn't I just want to comprehend the patriarch's spell from this iron coffin?" the boy said, feeling wronged. "Master, you said that we're the direct descendants of Lower Maoshan, but the Taoist priest from Tai Ching Monastery on Mount Phoenix said that we're imposters of their Maoshan spell scrolls. He even said that you don't even have an identity certificate, and that you're a fake Taoist priest. He said that we're just picking up the bones of the dead, and that we're not from Maoshan at all." "Nonsense!" The old man was so angry that his eyes widened, and he said breathlessly, "They lost the spell passed down by Patriarch Duke Jiu and let those people from Nanjing's Skyward Palace take it away, and now they blame us for being the direct descendants and chased us out of Shangqing Palace. Originally, Maoshan's forte was the Yin God Corpse dispelling spell, but now they're saying that those of us who still adhere to our patriarch's teachings are crooked. How dare you? Even if I, Shigong, die, I want to see the day when we descend from Mount Mao, retrieve our ancestral master's magic, and drive the elite metal zombie into Shangqing Palace." When the young man heard this, he said angrily, "If ancestral Master Duke Jiu can comprehend spells from great monarch Yan's corporeal body coffin, why can't we?" He said excitedly, "When we comprehend the 13 techniques of the corpse path from the treasures left behind by our founding master, we will be able to recreate the grand occasion when we descended from Mount Mao and ruled the 3 provinces in the southeast. If we still care about our ancestors' rules, when the people from the Shangqing Palace come knocking on our door, are we going to let them humiliate us?" The Shangqing Palace paid a visit? The old man, Shigong, was keenly aware of something and anxiously asked, "You evil disciple, what trouble did you cause this time? Why would the Shangqing Palace come knocking on our door for no reason at all? Did you tell them about the ancestral treasures?" The young man suddenly became terrified. He stammered, "That Shangqing Palace side courtyard's Taoist priest laughed at us." In a fit of anger, in a fit of rage, Shigong slapped his little disciple and roared, You're a fool. We have no power and influence, and the Shangqing Palace knows about it. Do we still have the lives of master and disciple? You despise us for picking up the bones of the dead. Do you think master will forget about you when he has a bite to eat? With this little bit of skill left behind by our founding master. Although we, master and disciple, have been despised by others, we don't have to worry about food and clothing. But you, rebellious disciple, have caused a great disaster. Do you want to take my old life? As he said this, Shigong jogged all the way and said to his disciple, "If not for you being my only unfilial disciple, and you being my poor sister's only son, quickly pack your things. Before the people from the Shangqing Palace come, let's run first." The little disciple was at a loss. Uncle. No, master. What about the ancestral treasures? Back then, Grandmaster Gio saw a comet falling to the ground at night. He entered the mountain for 3 days before he found this coffin. From the corpse of the immortal inside, he comprehended our corpse path's magic. This coffin is entirely made of grand white adamantine and weighs more than 18,000 jin. Grandmaster Jiu spent a lot of effort to dig it out from the mountain. Now that he's in a hurry, how can he move it? Just leave it here. Later, find a hidden place and bury it here. I'll come back to look for it in the future. Anyway, I can't let it fall into the hands of those traitors. Inside the coffin, Wang Chun slowly opened his eyes and let out a deep breath. Is it a TV series outside? And it's a stereo surround sound system. How generous! He had heard that some funeral businesses had developed refrigerated coffins and internet-connected coffins to meet the needs of various customers after death. There was a joke that went like this: even if I die, I'll use my withered throat to shout, cell phone, charge, connect Wi-Fi. Who would have thought that there would really be such a service inside a coffin? Wang Chun opened his eyes and saw a Taoist child with a Taoist bun on the glass plate less than 30 centimeters from his chest. The child widened his eyes and looked at him in horror. Before he could praise the high-end atmosphere of the coffin and its built-in 3D screen, he saw the Taoist child scream, "Master, the grand heavenly venerate's corpse has come back to life." Wang Chun found it funny when he saw the little Taoist child's face covered in tears and snot. He reached out and pushed the screen in front of him. Suddenly, a gap the size of 3 fingers slid open. The little Taoist child quickly held the coffin against it and shouted, "The corpse has come back to life. Oh my God! The great heavenly venerable Wei Sheng's coffin can't hold on any longer." "Brat, why are you so flustered?" Shi Gong rushed in from the front hall angrily. Just as he was about to scold his little disciple, he saw the heavenly venerable's Dharma body inside the ancestral treasure push open the crystal lid on the surface of the iron coffin and sit up. Shi Gong's eyes rolled back and he was about to pass out. The little disciple quickly ran over and pinched his master's philtrum. He cried, "Master, you can't die. What am I going to do if you die? In our Mao Mountain, even ancestral Master Jiu, we only managed to cultivate a flying yiksha. Now, even the god we worship has come back to life. What can I do, disciple?" "Master." Wang Chun didn't know if he should disturb the master and disciple when he saw the little Taoist child crying his heart out. He looked back and realized why the master and disciple called him the Chinese Great Heavenly Venerable of Salvation. On the lid of the iron coffin were the words, "Chinese Multiverse Dimensional Republic, Salvation Army Rescue Warehouse." Although it was written in simplified Chinese, the 2 people in front of him were dressed in ancient Chinese attire and spoke in a familiar dialect. They should be able to understand the words. Ahem. Wang Chun coughed twice and said, "Sorry to disturb you. May I know what dynasty it is now?" "Don't eat me!" The little disciple wailed and collapsed on Shi Gong's body. Shi Gong's philtrum was pinched so hard by the ground that he woke up from the pain. When he heard the great heavenly venerable who had come back to life speak the human language, and it was even in the capital's accent, he wasn't that afraid anymore. If he could speak the human language, he wouldn't be a zombie. If he wasn't a zombie, the master and disciple could still live. He cupped his hands to Wang Chun tremblingly and said, "Great Heavenly Venerable, this is the Great Ming Dynasty." Wang Chun's eyes lit up when he heard the words, "Great Ming Dynasty." Did I time travel? But looking at the iron coffin under him, the shape of the warehouse didn't seem too sci-fi. But from what the master and disciple said, it seemed that he had been sleeping in the warehouse for a long time. This kind of technology tree, the hibernation chamber, was not something that he, who was born in the first half of the 21st century and encountered a major disaster, could use. And what the hell was this Chinese multiverse dimensional republic? What was the Salvation Army? Another name for the People's Liberation Army? I time travel in a warehouse. It's a bit unconventional. And what kind of Taoist magic could that ancestral Master Jiu learn from the warehouse? Zhu Yuanzhang's Great Ming Dynasty. In case there was another Great Ming Dynasty in the other world, Wang Chun specially asked, "What era is it now?" Chapter 8:16. In the 41st year of the Wanli calendar, many fragments of information flashed through Wang Chen's mind. Thanks to his master's degree in literature from a key university, he could still vaguely remember many things. The 3 major expeditions of the Wanli calendar, the Old Wild Boar Panurhichi, the 7 Great Enmities Rebellion, the Battle of Sa Hu, Zhang Jiuzhing, the eunuchs, Feng Bao, Imperial Concubine Jing, the East Faction Guards, the West Faction Guards, Yu Huatian and Cao Suiyan. No, the last 2 were virtual characters. Wang Qin thought. His mind was in a mess. Feng Bao, Wang Ji, Wang En, Chen Ju, and Wei Zhongxian, who had not yet developed but was already ambitious and lurking in the dark. Why were they all eunuchs? Wang Qin suddenly came to his senses. He counted tens of thousands of civil officials he remembered, Zhang Jiuzhing, Yu Qian. No wonder it was said that in the Ming dynasty, the dead eunuchs and the civil officials divided the world equally. Hearing the celestial master, sitting on the iron coffin in a daze for a long time, Shi Gong couldn't help but sneak a glance and found Wang Qin in a trance. He thought anxiously, could it be that this celestial master is a corpse with a spirit, but his soul is incomplete? Shi Gong, who was old and shrewd, had found that the immortal resurrected from the ancestral treasure didn't seem that strange. He looked no different from an ordinary person. Wang Chen's sharp intuition reminded him of Shi Gong's doubtful look, and then he came to his senses. He didn't know if it was an illusion, but he felt that he had stayed in the barnyard for decades. Instead of muscle atrophy and exhaustion, he felt healthier. His brain was more flexible and his body was in better condition than ever, and even his spirit was sharper. This made him more certain that the barnyard he slept in was indeed a black technology that surpassed the world he had traveled through. There was definitely something wrong with the Republic of Dimensions in the Chinese multiverse. Wang Qin had a hunch that it might be able to reveal the secret of his time travel to the Ming dynasty. Oh! The little Taoist boy, who had fainted in fear, slowly woke up. He said quietly, "Master, I seem to have dreamed that the corpse in our ancestral treasure came back to life." Seeing Wang Qin staring at him, the little Taoist boy was so scared that his voice cracked. Wang Qin was still having a headache. The master and disciple seemed to think he was an immortal. Should he bite the bullet and keep pretending? Or find another excuse to explain the current situation? Logically speaking, for the sake of safety, Wang Qin had better maintain the identity of an immortal. However, the ancients were not fools. The old Taoist had recovered from the shock just now, and his eyes were already filled with suspicion. Wang Qin did not think that he had the ability to pretend to be an immortal in the ancients' eyes. I've never heard of a swindler who can lie to the world without knowing anything about the person they're trying to deceive. As a matter of fact, the skill of mystifying others had to be built on the advantage of information in order to be able to fool others in one fell swoop. Given the current situation where Wang Qin was clueless, he was not confident that he could handle the subsequent test. But we can't just sit here and do nothing. Wang Qin lowered his head and sighed inwardly. When he saw the cabin he was sitting on, he suddenly realized, that's right. If this was really a high-tech warehouse, there was no way it wouldn't be equipped with self-defense weapons. Even World War II pilots were equipped with a pistol for self-defense. On the lifeboats of ocean-going ships, signal guns were standard equipment. How could a cabin capable of interstellar travel, which is highly likely to be a lost spaceship, not have any weapons? Wang Qin decisively lay back down and closed the glass cover of the cabin. Hearing the click of a mechanical lock, Wang Qin was finally relieved. At least there was a cabin to protect him. If there was any danger outside, he could just continue to sleep. After sleeping for 8 to 10 years, all dangers would disappear. Looking at the high-end atmosphere of this cabin, it was basically impossible for the indigenous people outside to open it without hundreds of years of research. Seeing him lying back in the coffin, the two Taoists stared at each other. The little Taoist was no longer afraid. He plucked up his courage and asked, "Master, why did the great heavenly venerable lie back down?" Shi Gong looked at this unlucky kid and wished he could slap him to death. He stepped forward and said respectfully, "Farewell, immortal venerable." Before he could finish his words, the glazed lid of the magic treasure, the old Taoist had always thought so, immediately opened again. The celestial master, who had just laid back on the bed, sat up with a piece of black iron in his hand. Based on the old Taoist's knowledge and experience, it was somewhat similar to the short guns of the Great Ming Dynasty's firearms camp, but it was more angular and somewhat inexplicably nimble. In the lower left corner of the cabin, Wang Chun, who had found 3 magazines of 19 bullets and a self-defense pistol, finally had the confidence to ensure his safety. "With a gun in hand, I feel at ease." Wang Chun sighed with emotion. He didn't want to pretend to be mysterious anymore. Instead, he imitated Gong Gaong's style of cupping his hands and said, "Taoist, I'm not a god. I'm just a foreigner who's in trouble. To take refuge, I slept in this coffin. Master Taoist, please don't be so polite." Shi Gong was intimidated. After thinking for a while, he finally believed the ancestor. The ancestor said that this coffin was brought here by a comet falling to the earth. How could it be false? Taking refuge from the sky, weren't they immortals? As for why immortals didn't admit that they were immortals, the sky could see it. Would immortals think that they were immortals? Only mortals like us who were born, old, sick, and dead would think that immortals were immortals. As for the immortals themselves, they had seen too many of them and didn't think it was strange to live forever. Wang Chun couldn't see through Shi Gong's complicated thoughts. All he saw was that Shi Gong was still bowing to the coffin, and even the doubts in his eyes had disappeared. He simply crawled out of the coffin. Wang Chun was also quite afraid that after the cover of the cabin was closed, even he himself wouldn't be able to open it. But he found that this cabin seemed to be operated by his brain waves or something, and only recognized him. Just now, when he found the pistol, he was lying in the cabin, thinking about where the self-defense weapon was. As a result, the secret compartment on the right opened by itself. Later, he found that opening and closing the cover of the cabin was also controlled by his mind. Maybe there was fingerprint and iris verification? Anyway, as soon as he pulled it, it opened. After he went out, he also tried it and found that he could still open it, but most others probably couldn't. He didn't believe that the natives hadn't tried to open the cabin after it had been in their hands for so long. Just now in the cabin, Wang Chun also found a display screen. It was the glass cover through which he could see his upper body. When he lay back down, he found that the glass cover could project some data related to the cabin according to his need. For example, he saw just now that 43% of the nutrient solution in the cabin had been used up, and there was also a nutrient solution nanorobot that could automatically collect and synthesize materials. Wang Chun checked the replenishment progress and found that it would take about 2% a day to recover. Chapter 8:17. After climbing out of the coffin, Wang Chun realized that the place he was in was not a proper Taoist temple. In fact, it was a mortuary, a place where corpses were kept. Usually, the corpses of foreigners and unidentified people would be left in the mortuary and wait for someone to bring them to the grave. Out of the Chinese's belief that the dead should be respected, such mortuary was usually built with donations from rich families in the countryside. In years without natural disasters, the countryside in China still had a trace of warmth and tenderness. But these two Taoists, one old and one young, were actually wild Taoists. Taoists in the Great Ming Dynasty enjoyed a high status, but they had to have official documents, diplomas, so they would not end up in this unlucky mortuary. The old Taoist's living standard was not bad, which could be seen from the fact that the tea he served to Wang Chen was new. But Wang Chen did not have the habit of casually drinking things handed to him in a strange environment. So he put the tea aside with a smile and kept talking to the old Taoist, trying to get some useful information out of him. He did not touch the tea at all. After chatting for a while, Wang Chen noticed that the old Taoist was a little restless. He thought for a while, and then remembered the voices in the granary that he thought were sleep talk. Suddenly he understood. The old and the young were preparing to run for their lives. The old Taoist seemed to have seen through Wang Chen's intention, so he stopped hiding and said with a wry smile, "Young master, please don't laugh at us. The two of us, alone and widowed, have offended the Shangqing Palace on the nearby Phoenix Mountain. How dare we stay here any longer? I've already prepared to escape with my disciple. After entertaining young master, I'll set off right away. I can't delay any longer." Wang Chen smiled and asked casually, "You and your disciple are alone, so you're not afraid of the Shangqing Palace. But there's one thing I don't understand, and I hope you can explain it to me." The old Taoist raised his hand and said, "Young master, please ask." Wang Chen went straight to the point. "Taoist priest, you can leave, but the coffin I'm sleeping in can't. Even if you want to bury me, you have to ask for my permission. But if I take away the coffin, I'm sure you won't be willing to do so. The coffin is here. Where can Taoist priest escape to?" Old Taoist Shigong forced a smile and apologized. "Please forgive me, young master. This mysterious coffin naturally belongs to young master. When Patriarch Zhu of Mount Mao found the coffin, young master was lying inside. To the Shangqing Palace, I can say that this treasure belongs to me. But to the young master, I would never dare to say that." "But," Shigong was unwilling to give up. "This is still the Patriarch's relic. It is where the lapel of my Lower Mao Mountain lies, and the legacy of my Lower Mao Mountain lineage is tied to this item. Tao techniques and magic power all originated from this treasure. I'm not willing to give up my ancestors' relic just like that." Seeing the sincerity in Shigong's words, Wang Chen suddenly felt a little more confident. He had just figured out that the relationship between him and this coffin must never be known by others. The master and disciple who watched him climb out of the coffin were the two people who knew most of his secret. He could never let them divulge this secret. Fortunately for the master and disciple, this coffin was also an extremely important secret. If he killed the master and disciple, Wang Chen would not have the heart to do it. Moreover, from the perspective of power and tactics, he would fall into the lower class. The best way was, of course, to persuade the master and disciple. Wang Chen immediately said, "That's the decision you can't make, Taoist priest. But I have an immature idea. This coffin naturally belongs to me. But since you came to Mount Mao, you are indeed destined to have it. How about this? What you paid attention to when you came to Mount Mao was probably the Tao technique you comprehended from this coffin. No one knows more about the secret of this coffin than I do. Why don't you tell me the origin of your family's Tao technique and the key points? I'll rederive the inherited Tao technique of your family, and then you'll get the lost Tao technique, and you won't need this inheritance anymore. Don't tell me you still want to compete with me, your master." Wang Chen asked in a seemingly joking manner. I dare not. Shigong bowed and said, "Young master, you've done us a great favor by allowing us to comprehend the treasured coffin. How dare I not back down and covet young master's treasure?" But Shigong was a cunning old fox after all. He took the opportunity to make a request. "I came to Mount Mao for the inheritance of young master's treasure. Young master has been half a teacher to us. I think, since young master has no prejudice against sex, if you don't mind me coming to Mount Mao, why don't you join us? We'll worship young master as our ancestral master and be on the same level as ancestral master Jiu. Isn't that great? Well, Wang Chen didn't expect someone to be so shameless as to take advantage of the situation and attach himself to the ancestral master. But on second thought, this was really the best of both worlds. Wang Chen didn't care about a title anyway. Moreover, if he joined Mount Mao, his seniority would be much higher than that old Taoist, so it was only natural that he could see the Tao techniques of Mount Mao. Wang Chen was really curious about Tao techniques, as if he had a kitten in his stomach. If he became a senior ancestral master, it would be completely in line with his wishes. In this way, he could legitimately subdue these two Taoists who knew his biggest secret, and he could also have a title to explore the world of Tao technique. Seeing that Wang Chen had no objection, Shi Gong bowed again and said, "If young master is willing to join Mount Mao, the position of sect master will naturally be yours. Although Mount Mao is down and out, we still have many Dharma branches that are spread outside, and we have relations with several unorthodox sects and dozens of heterodox sects in several provinces in the southeast. If young master can revive the 13 corpse sects, 6 ghost sects, and 29 miscellaneous sects of Taoism of Mount Mao, and make the Dharma branches that are scattered outside submit to us, young master can just raise his arm and call for followers to gather. Then, Lower Mao will be re-established as the leader of the 3 southeastern provinces and the first heterodox sect in the Great Ming Dynasty. At that time, the young ancestral master's kindness to me was greater than the sky and the earth. Shi Gong will die for him." Hearing this, Wang Chen was moved. Although the heterodox sects didn't sound so good, Mount Mao was once the first heterodox sect in the Great Ming Dynasty, so its ancestors must have been rich, which would be of great help to him. In fact, Shi Gong really wanted to move Wang Chen with this. So what if they were immortals? Immortals also needed disciples and apprentices to serve them. Didn't immortals need to be worshipped? Wang Chen sat upright and said, "This is the best of both worlds. If you sincerely regard me as your ancestral master, I will naturally treat you sincerely. But if you just want to find a cover and use me as a puppet, you should give up on this idea as soon as possible. Of course, I sincerely invite you." Shi Gong pushed Wang Chen's seat and immediately knelt down and kowtowed, saying, "Grand disciple, please Dharma idol of ancestral master to welcome young ancestral master into our Maoshan Dharma branch. Young ancestral master, please regard my ancestral master Jiu as your senior brother." Wang Chen knew that between him and Duke Jiu, who was the senior brother, this was an official dispute of Mount Mao. Although he didn't care, he still had to fight for it. Immediately, he said with a straight face, "Duke Jiu obtained my treasure, comprehended the Tao, and established the Maoshan branch. Technically speaking, he and I are half a master. Now that I'm making friends with him, how can I allow him to take a higher position than me?" Shi Gong kowtowed and said, "Young ancestral master has taught me the Tao, but in the Maoshan branch, the laws and rules are all set by ancestral master Jiu. Jiu is the most virtuous person in the branch. Previously, young ancestral master took ancestral master Jiu as his disciple, just like ancestral master Lu and immortal Zhongli Quan. Now that we invite young ancestral master to join Mount Mao, how can we dare to regard him as ancestral granduncle in front of ancestral master Jiu? Young ancestral master, please regard ancestral master Jiu as your senior brother." Wang Chen didn't care about these things, but he knew that it was extremely difficult for people to place him in front of the real ancestral master. Forcing it would inevitably cause people to go against each other. Why did they have to do this? Therefore, he casually said a few words and agreed to it. After receiving his permission, Shi Gong immediately invited ancestral master Jiu's Dharma image and opened the sect hall. After reporting to the ancestral master, he took a red pen and added Wang Chen's Dharma name after ancestral master Jiu's name in the Maoshan branch book, calling him Immortal Wei Sheng. Disciple Gong pays respect to young ancestral master. Shi Gong and his disciple respectfully kowtowed to Wang Qin. From then on, Wang Weixing, a citizen of China in the 21st century, a grassroots civil servant with a master's degree who could feed his family, became the young ancestral master of Mount Mao, the first heterodox sect of the Great Ming Dynasty, and took charge of the Maoshan branch. Chapter 8:18. Master, this is the only spell left in our Maoshan branch. Shi Gong held a yellowed old book and respectfully placed it on the table in front of Wang Qin. Wang Qin picked it up and flipped through a few pages. It was a handwritten notebook. The traditional Chinese characters written with a brush were piled up like flies, mixed with simplified cursive script and ciphers. There were no punctuation marks. Even though Wang Qin was from the Chinese department, it was still very difficult for him to read it. It was filled with a large number of pronouns such as lead mercury, dragon and tiger, cinnabar, and a large number of Taoist nouns, which made his scalp tingle and his head hurt. Wang Qin hurriedly closed the secret book and cursed in his mind, "Whoever tells me that secret books can be understood by time travelers in the future? I'll be angry with him." Without punctuation marks, modern people, as long as they don't study that subject, I'm afraid they can't even understand the Analects of Confucius. Not to mention this kind of relatively closed cultural circle, filled with a large number of pronouns and ciphers of Taoism, except for those disciples and disciples of the same lineage, how can others understand it? He put down the secret book and smiled at Shi Gong. "No need. I can't understand this secret book even if you give it to me. You can just show me." Shi Gong bowed and said, "Yes, Your Majesty." Shi Gong respectfully led Wang Qin to the Ming Hall of the Memorial Hall, where several old and new coffins were placed. His young disciple followed behind them and busied himself with helping. Shi Gong came to an old coffin and explained to Wang Qin, "Young patriarch, in Maoshan branch, Taoist spells are all from human corpses. There are many unclean and dark places." Wang Qin nodded and said, "I know. You can open the hall now." Shi Gong excused himself and pushed the lid of the coffin with his hands, revealing a lifelike corpse of a man with a livid face. The lid of the coffin was a little rotten. As soon as it was opened, the smell of rotten wood rushed straight into Wang Qin's nose. But after carefully distinguishing it, he found that there was a smell of Chinese medicine ointment mixed in it, which was not the stench of a corpse. Wang Qin carefully examined it for a long time. After confirming that there was indeed no rotten odor, he moved closer to take a look. Shi Gong explained, "In the Mao Mountain lineage, there are 13 types of corpse spells, 6 types of ghost spells, and 29 types of miscellaneous arts. Most of them have been lost. What's left are these secret techniques that can't even be considered spells. The first is this method of preserving corpses. Grand Ancestor Duke Jiu obtained a secret ointment from the young ancestor's coffin. It was able to preserve the young ancestor's body for dozens of years, just like a living person, without aging or rotting. Grand Ancestor Duke Jiu deduced that the ointment applied by the young ancestor must be a secret medicine for immortality in the upper realm. Patriarch Jiu was a heaven-warping genius. He used his magic power to get out of young Patriarch's coffin. Speaking of this, Shi Gong cautiously looked up at Wang Qin. After confirming that Wang Qin didn't look worried, he continued, "I stole a few elixirs of immortality and comprehended a lot of corpse elixirs from them. It can preserve the dead and nourish the corpses, so that the corpses won't rot in the hottest days of the year, and the blood of the corpses won't freeze in the coldest of nights. Their faces will be rosy, and their hair and skin will be intact." There's such a function? Wang Qin didn't know how to express what he was thinking. You guys can even develop this function of the nutrient solution. Is Grand Ancestor Duke Jiu's Chinese medicine skills maxed out? He can actually use Chinese medicine to imitate the function of the nutrient solution. This kind of black technology would be worth billions of US dollars in the 21st century. It's cutting-edge medical technology that can win the Nobel Prize in Physiology, yet your grand ancestor can replicate it using Chinese medicine. Should I say that Chinese medicine is really unscientific? This is the prerequisite skill to unlock the cultivation skill tree. Shi Gong was still sighing. I thought that even if Grand Ancestor Duke Jiu didn't recover 70%, he would at least have grasped 50% of the secrets of the celestial medicine in the iron coffin. When it comes to preserving corpses, it's just that the effect is slightly worse. Later on, through this medicine, he came up with many secret medicines that can change the quality of corpses. For example, the iron corpse medicine smeared on this iron corpse can seep into the muscles and bones of the corpse, making the corpse as tough as steel and invulnerable. Before the Maoshan Taoist art of corpse exorcism was lost, an iron corpse was like a heavy armor with infinite strength. One iron corpse could fight against 100 people. I didn't expect that preserving corpses is just the surface of the celestial medicine in the iron coffin. This celestial medicine can actually make people immortal. Shi Gong cupped his hands towards Wang Chen and said, "I'm so ashamed. Young Grand Ancestor. Compared to the elixir that young Grand Ancestor used, which can keep one's appearance unchanged for decades, the elixir of immortality." Shi Gong covered his face and said nothing. Wang Chen boldly squeezed the body of the iron corpse. Sure enough, wherever he touched, it felt like rubber with a kind of gelatinous texture. Shi Gong was a little ashamed of the effect of his secret medicine, but he didn't know that Wang Chen was also very shocked. He thought to himself, although I can't dissect it, this feeling, it's like rubber. It's said that those who practice body-hardening Qigong can build a layer of skin under their skin after long-term training. Compared to this corpse-refining medicine, it's nothing. This medicine is almost as good as the rubber fruit. No wonder it's said that it's invulnerable. Based on the quality of cold weapons in ancient times, it might really be hard to cut through the skin of this corpse. And under the skin of this iron corpse, the layer of fat must have been refined into something by these Maoshan Taoist priests. It's probably some non-Newtonian fluid. The stronger and faster the attack, the harder it is. Shi Gong told Wang Chen that the loss of the secret medicine of Maoshan was also very serious. Among the 5 kinds of corpses, only the secret medicine of the iron corpse was left, and the most important secret method of controlling corpses was lost. Even if there were a few bronze-armored corpses left behind, they couldn't be used. This iron corpse was only refined by the old Taoist priest because he accidentally found a corpse with a particularly good aptitude. Now, he could only look at it. How shameful! The two of us, master and disciple, can still make some money by relying on the prescription left by Patriarch Duke Jiu to prevent corpses from rotting. Oh? Then how do you make money? Wang Chen suddenly became spirited at the mention of money. The two of us, master and disciple, make a living by using secret medicine to put the dead into the coffin. Patriarch Duke Jiu left a few kinds of secret medicine to cover the wounds. If there are corpses killed by swords and spears, if the family members want to bury the body in one piece, they have to invite us. After applying the ointment, the wounds of the corpses will be covered up, and the wounds will not be seen anymore. This was originally the prescription we used to refine corpses when we went down to Mount Mao. At that time, we drove the corpses to fight against the enemies. Most of the corpses were damaged, but some of the wounds were repaired with this secret medicine. There are also corpses that are preserved. In the surrounding villages, whenever they hold funerals, they have to invite us to apply the secret medicine to the corpses so that they won't rot for dozens of days. When it's time to stop the spirits, we put the corpses on display to make them look good. There are also some rich families that spend a lot of money and use the best secret medicine to make the corpses look good. In order to make the corpses look good, they have to make the corpses rosy and lifelike. Only then will they look filial. There are also those who drown, burn, or hang. No matter what kind of corpses they are, I can clean them up with the ability left behind by the patriarch. Since ancient times, weddings and funerals have always cost a lot of money. The people of China are diligent and thrifty. They are only willing to spend money on these two major events. Although your business doesn't sound good, I'm afraid it's not cheap to collect money. Wang Qin sighed. Although the things the master and disciple did were despicable, they were probably rich. The reason why they looked so poor was probably because they wanted to keep a low profile. After all, it was not the right way to make a fortune through funerals. If the master and disciple were to attract the jealousy of others, there would be endless troubles. They might even have to go to court. Being a little more restrained also showed the wisdom of Shigong. As Wang Chun thought about it, he suddenly patted his head and asked Shigong, "If this secret medicine of yours can be used on corpses, it can also be used on living people, right? The medicine to close the incision, it's the best medicine for wounds. If the secret medicine used to make iron corpses can be used to practice external martial arts, won't it be easy to master it? If the medicine can make the corpses rosy and young, won't it be a magic medicine to beautify a young lady?" As Wang Chun spoke, he was shocked. No wonder Lower Mao Mountain used to be the #1 heterodox sect in the Great Ming Dynasty. In his time, the things that leaked out from under the fingernails were treasures worth tens of billions of US dollars. Shigong moved closer to Wang Qin and said in a low voice, "Young patriarch, the secret medicine used to close the wound is indeed a top-notch medicine for healing wounds. It's called golden jade powder, and its effect is even better when used on living people. The secret medicine of iron corpses is also a secret ointment for external martial arts called zombie fist. But without the zombie fist inner method of the Yin family in Qin province, the person who uses this medicine to practice martial arts will lose the sense of pain even if he can master the thwart kung fu that makes him invulnerable. After 3 to 5 years, his whole body will gradually become numb, like a living corpse, and even his breathing will be numb. Then he will turn himself into an iron corpse. As for the rosy powder that can make the corpses rosy and young, no one thought it could be used on living people. This is an unlucky thing used by the dead, who would want to apply it on their wife's face. Besides, the reputation of Lower Mao Mountain is not good, and our disciples are. I'm 53 this year. I haven't found a wife yet. When I joined the sect, Lower Mao Mountain was still in its heyday. So, all of you are single dogs." Wang Chun widened his eyes and pointed at Shigong. "You want me to be your young patriarch? Aren't you trying to harm me? I don't have any grudges against you." "Forget it." Wang Chun waved his hand and sighed without looking at the confused Shigong. "Let's get down to business. I've roughly guessed why you don't sell medicine. These secret medicines are too precious. You'll have countless troubles if you reveal a trace of them. It's not as simple and easy as eating the food of the dead, and you can make a lot of money. In this world, selling beauty and skincare products may not be as profitable as making money from the dead. If you can make a lot of money, those rich families can spend mountains of gold and silver without blinking for the sake of their filial reputation. Women's money is easier to make than men's, and children's money is easier than women's. But the money of the dead is the easiest to make." Chapter 8:19. After Wang Chun had seen the secret medicine left by the Maoshan sect, although he knew that these inconspicuous things were the most important heritage of a sect, he still couldn't help feeling a little disappointed. What he really wanted to see were the Taoist magic arts and magic power mentioned by Senior Shigong. For a young man who grew up in a country guided by materialism and liked traditional culture, these things were incomparably attractive. As he casually responded to Shigong, he thought about how to stealthily lead the topic to this. "You just mentioned the Yin family of Qin province. The Yin family's martial art, the zombie fist, needs the help of Mao Mountain's secret medicine to master. This shows that the Yin family has a special relationship with Mao Mountain." Shigong answered, "Indeed. The Yen family was originally an outer sect of Mao Mountain. When Patriarch Duke Jiu was still here, disciples of the Yen family would come to Mao Mountain every year to learn martial arts. Their fist technique could only be mastered with the secret medicine of Mao Mountain's gold and silver corpses. The Patriarch even gave them the secret medicine to refine iron and bronze corpses so that they could master the fist technique in the Yen family. Later on, Mao Mountain met with a great calamity. All the elders and disciples were slaughtered, including gold, silver, copper, and iron. The flying Yiksha's secret medicine for refining corpses was only left with the iron corpse medicine. Most of the techniques were lost as well. More than half of the Yen family's disciples who joined Mao Mountain died. Only then did they slowly lose contact with us. Let's not talk about the Yen family. Even the one family of Min Nan and not us from Mao Mountain? Among the 4 heretical clans, Tang, Lei, Wen, and Yen, 2 of them belonged to the forces of Lower Mao Mountain. When Lower Mao Mountain was at its peak, the shamans of Min Nan, the Quan Nan Fist sect and geomasters of Guangdong, the witchcraft practitioners of Guangxi, and even the navy and corpse drivers of Xiangxi, the people of all walks of life in Xiangxi, Minnan, Guangxi, Yunnan, and Guizhou dared not accept Duke Jiu's summons. They called themselves Mao Mountain Taoist priests, San Mao True Lord, and Grandmaster Jiu's disciples. It's only now that I've left Mao Mountain. At that time, the heretical forces united in Mao Mountain's outer sect scattered. Young Patriarch, although the 3 of us are the only ones left of Mao Shan's direct lineage, Mao Shan's disciples are still spread across Yunnan, Guizhou, Guangxi, Xiangxi, and Minnan. All we have to do is wait for the ancestral master to restore the Mao Shan Taoism. With a wave of his arm, the disciples will immediately gather and rebuild the Mao Shan Taoism. It had never occurred to Wang Qin that this Mao Mountain Taoist priest, who only appeared in old Hong Kong movies and ghost stories, could be so powerful. If what Shi Gong said was true, this sect must have many secrets. Among them, the most mysterious one should be the founder of Mao Shan Taoism, Duke Jiu. All the Taoist magic of Mao Shan Taoism seemed to originate from the Zhen song that Wang Qin wrote in. Duke Jiu was a peerless genius who must have discovered many secrets from the Zhen song. Wang Qin had a vague feeling that there seemed to be an inextricable connection between him and the Mao Shan Taoism. He pondered for a moment and asked, since the Mao Mountain branch was once so glorious, how did it end up with only the 2 of you left in the main branch? Shi Gong couldn't help but burst into tears at the thought of that scene. He knelt down and said, Young Patriarch, there's a blood feud between us and the Mao Shan Taoism that caused us to end up like this. Patriarch Jiu was just a Taoist priest in the Shangqing Palace of Mao Shan. He obtained the coffin of the young Patriarch and became a perfected being. He dominated the southeast and founded the sect. The Shangqing Palace looked down on the Patriarch, but they couldn't find anyone who could be compared to him. At that time, the Taoist magic appeared, and the dragon and snake continent rose. It was an era of great competition. Many ancient magic treasures appeared one after another, most of which were obtained by the Chuanjin sect. In the Zhengyi sect, only Dragon and Tiger Mountain obtained an ancient magic treasure. Another person, Patriarch Jiu, also obtained the coffin of the young Patriarch. Just because Patriarch Jiu was not a Taoist priest, the people of the Shangqing Palace dared to call him a junior. How could Patriarch Jiu, perfected being immeasurable, endure such humiliation? At that time, in a battle, 7 Taoists from the Mao Shan sect followed the Patriarch and broke into the mountain. They defeated 76 Taoist priests from the Shangqing Palace and made them feel ashamed. They had no choice but to agree to Patriarch Jiu's founding of the sect and rule the southeast and the heretical sects of the world. Patriarch Jiu remembered the virtue of the Shangqing Palace and honored them as the Mao Shan sect. He was willing to renounce the sect he founded as the Mao Shan sect. What kind of benevolence was that? Dragon and Tiger Mountain, Maoshan, and Mount Gazao were the three talisman mountains of the Zhengyi sect. Just because of the conflict between the Patriarch and the Shangqing Palace, he denounced the Maoshan sect as heretical and could not stand side by side with them. The Qingyang Palace of Sichuan and Dragon and Tiger Mountain of Jiangxi both had perfected beings. Even the people of Mount Gazao without a perfected being dared to look down on us. The Patriarch gave the temples in the southeast provinces to the Shangqing Palace. He used the heretical sects of several provinces and the heretical sects of the world as the foundation of the sect. He established the Maoshan sect as the first heretical sect. From then on, the world called Patriarch Jiao the Patriarch of the heretical sects. The Maoshan sect is the ancestral court of the heretical sects. The world's prostitutes, beggars, dharma masters, earth masters, witches, deities, chuma masters, advisors, yamen runners, matchmakers, pawns, time demons, thieves, high platforms, boasting, circus, pushing, pool, back scrubbing, mending, sex workers, prostitutes, dog beating, oil peddlers, pedicures, hair shaving, food lifting, tailoring. All those who have magical power and Taoist magic are under the command of the Maoshan sect. The Maoshan sect is in charge of the laws of the lower 9 classes of cultivators in the world. Anyone who dares to do evil will be struck down by the Maoshan sect. Today, the imperial court respects the Chuanzhen sect as the orthodox sect. Nanjing's Chaotian Palace, Beijing's Baiyun Temple, Wudong Mountains Zhenwu Temple, Zhongnan Mountains Chongyang Palace, Chunyang Wanshou Palace, as well as the Yuxian sect, Nanwu sect, Suishan sect, Dragon's Gate sect, Luan Mountain sect, Huashan sect, Qingjing sect, and the other 7 true sects all have perfected beings to suppress their sections. Today, the land of the north has Chuanzhen sect as the orthodox sect. The 3 mountains of Righteous One are holed up in their own province. They don't have the guts to fight with them. As such, when the Chuanzhen sect moved south, only Patriarch Jiao could stop them. He fought with the Chuanzhen sect 3 times and firmly stopped them from entering Nanjing. However, 19 years ago, during the 4th fight, Patriarch Jiao's internal injuries relapsed and he unfortunately passed away. Shigong sobbed. At this time of crisis, when the righteous sects should have rejected the Chuanzhen sect, the Shangqing Palace plotted against me. They lured the Chuanzhen sect's perfected ones into the ancestral court of the Maoshan sect. Senior brothers and uncle masters fought back with all their might. The fire burned for 3 days, and the southeast wept blood. Later, when the Maoshan sect's outer sect, the 3 great witches of Miaojiang, the great shaman of the northeast, the corpse king of Xiangxi, the 2 heretical perfected ones of southern Min, and the 2 geomasters of Guang arrived, the Maoshan sect was already in ruins. Only I, the youngest disciple who had just entered the Tao, was escorted to the secret tunnel by my senior brothers to preserve the Maoshan sect's orthodoxy. At that time, there were 19 disciples who entered the tunnel together. The fire set by those bastards lasted for 3 days and 3 nights, and 18 of us suffocated to death. I was the only one who survived the pile of corpses. After the Patriarch passed away, the elders of the Maoshan sect had already anticipated this terrible situation. They secretly sent the Patriarch's treasures down the mountain and hid them in this memorial hall. Later, I received the elders' will and secretly returned here. I accepted this useless disciple and lived in seclusion for 18 years. Chapter 8:20. After listening to Shigong Ju's bloody accusations, Wang Chen didn't feel much sympathy. Instead, he was thinking about the huge amount of information in these words. There were 3 keywords: Divine Taoism, Ancient Magic Weapon, and Chuanzhen 1. Divine Taoism meant that the revival of magic and power seemed to have happened not long ago. According to Shigong Ju, it should have happened in the last few decades. Grandmaster Duke Ju died of internal injuries 19 years ago. According to the time he got the treasure, practiced, and founded the sect, it should have happened in about 30 years. That is to say, the divine Taoism happened during the reign of Emperor Jiajing. Emperor Jiajing was also known as the Taoist Emperor. If the ancient magic weapon was born during his reign, it wouldn't be surprising if Taoism got most of it. According to Shigong, it seems that when the divine Taoism appeared, Buddhism didn't have much influence. Wang Chen was a little suspicious. Shamans who danced as gods had power, but other religions were so calm, it didn't make sense. He had to ask about the details slowly. Shigong, Wang Chen asked, I've heard you mention Jinren many times. What is the realm of Jinren? Shigong said, Young Grandmaster, the gold pill of the Chuanjin sect is self-sufficient, and the Taoist foundation of the Jingyi sect is self-sufficient. Once you become a Jinren, your natal magic power will condense into a Taoist foundation in your body. From then on, your magic power will be endless, and you will be self-sufficient. You will never have to worry about your magic power collapsing. Then what is magic power? Wang Chen was confused. Shigong thought for a while and said with a frown, Young Grandmaster, when the disaster happened at the foot of Mount Mao, I just received the talisman. I only had a little magic power in my body from my master. After my master taught me some qi cultivation method, he went out to fight against the enemy. After the fire, all the senior brothers who had magic power in our sect were killed. They lost the inheritance of magic power. So you asked me, I really don't know. Received the talisman? Wang Chen frowned and said, Your magic power was given by someone? You didn't cultivate your own qi? Practicing qi? Shigong was a little surprised. If practicing qi can cultivate mana, why do all the cultivators in the world have to be mortal bodies before the birth of the magic treasures, pretending to be mysterious and deceiving? It's not about the revival of spiritual qi. Forget it. Wang Chen said helplessly, Your Taoist law manifestation doesn't follow the rules. Shigong explained, In this world, as long as there is a Tao of Chuanjin, they will need to rely on the Taoist masters to bestow their mana. The Chuanjin is known as the enlightened light, while the righteous one is known as the receiving scripture. Only those who have enlightened light and receiving scripture can be considered Taoist masters. Otherwise, even if they are Taoist masters, they are just fake Taoist masters. The imperial court recognizes them, but we cultivators don't. The enlightening talisman can't be used easily. Even those with powerful magic power, as long as they haven't become Jinren, will suffer a great loss of vitality when they enlighten their disciples. They won't be able to recover even after 3 to 5 years. Only those Jinren who are self-sufficient, have perfect magic power, and have achieved the Taoist route can easily enlighten their disciples. Therefore, if there is no Jinren, the inheritance of the sect will be cut off. They can only rely on the Taoists to enlighten their disciples with their hard-earned magic power. How can they increase their magic power? Unless… Wang Chen frowned and asked, Unless what? Shigong struggled for a while and then said with his teeth clenched, Unless there is an ancient magic treasure passed down in the sect, like the coffin in which young Grandmaster lives, a magic treasure. Young Grandmaster, the world's Taoist law has been extinct for a long time. For hundreds of years, there hasn't been a Jinren or a Taoist with magic power. How can there be a world of great competition for the Taoist law manifestation? I once heard from Grandmaster Duke Jiao that all the magic power in the world originates from ancient magic treasures. When the magic power first appeared, it was absorbed by the Jinren from ancient magic treasures. Having an ancient magic treasure is equivalent to having a Jinren, and it has endless magical uses. This is also the reason why Lower Mao Mountain has not been removed. Ancient magic treasure. Wang Chen was stunned. He looked back at his vitality chamber. He didn't see it go anywhere in the ancient times. And no matter how he looked at it, it didn't look like something that could absorb magic power. Could it be that there was some dark technology in this vitality chamber that he hadn't discovered, or that it could only be used after refining? Then why don't you use this ancient magic treasure to become a Zhenren? Didn't Lower Mao Mountain leave a method to absorb magic power from magic treasures? Wang Chen asked curiously. Shi Shigong's face instantly turned red. He said with difficulty, I'm useless. I've let down the grandmasters and the elders. He banged his forehead and said painfully, Not everyone knows the method to absorb magic power from ancient magic treasures, but it is widely known. How could I not know? But Shi Shigong gritted his teeth and said, This technique requires a Taoist to refine a magic treasure, and he will receive the feedback of magic power. I've been cultivating for 19 years, but I haven't even touched the threshold of the Taoist realm. I'm ashamed to face the patriarch in the underworld. Shi Shigong wept bitterly. It really needs to be refined. Wang Chen was speechless. What is the Taoist realm? Wang Chen sighed with emotion. First, tell me about the various realms of cultivators. You've inherited the teachings of Maoshan sect. It's not like you can't even become a Taoist after 19 years, right? Shi Shigong explained. A Taoist is only below a Zhenren. Taoists have a true spirit which opens up their wisdom, their ability to use their mana to the finest detail, surpassing those below the Taoist level by countless times. Their wisdom is connected to the spirit, and they are able to inspire the spirit in their mind. The righteous sect is able to form a Taoist talisman in their mind. For example, when I came down from Mao Mountain, the Haotian Golden Palace Supreme Venerable Nature Miraculous Jade Emperor High Spirit Platform True Talisman, and Longhu Mountains Taishang Heaven Opening Talisman Imperial Calendar True Talisman containing True Body Tao True Talisman. Without becoming a Taoist, there was no hope of becoming a perfected being. If Xuanzhen wants to become a Taoist, he has to become a Yin master. Below the Taoist realm is the Mage realm. Taoists have a spirit, and their mana can travel 3 feet away from their body. This is the Mage realm. To become a mage, one has to first cultivate the divine sense. Those who have just received the talisman and obtained a wisp of mana can be called Taoist priest or Taoist disciple. Shi Shigong said shamefully, I've been cultivating for 19 years, but I'm still on the path of Taoism. My mana is only at the middle level. It's because the Maoshan Taoism has been lost, and the spiritual movement, Great Sage, Two Realms Magnetic Talisman, that cultivates the divine sense has been lost. Even the external medicine of the golden pill that cultivates mana is not enough. That's why, if I came down from Mao Mountain when it was at its peak, I had a guru's divine sense to help me condense true talismans. There were external medicines produced by various minds, and the Hall of Alchemy refined them into external pills to help me condense mana. Becoming a mage would be a piece of cake. Even if it's the Taoist realm, I should have achieved it in 19 years. Although you've made it very clear. Wang Chen sighed and said, But why do I feel so strange? An image of a Taoist priest inhaling and exhaling in a granary appeared in Wang Chen's mind. He felt that something was wrong all over. He thought to himself, except for the weird ancient magic treasures, everything else is very much in line with the habits of cultivators. Taking pills, cultivating the divine sense, and all of them are golden pill. It's very cultivation. What else could be wrong? Show me the external medicine of the golden pill, Wang Chen said. However, he saw Shi Shigong's troubled expression. He frowned and then heard Shi Shigong say in a low voice, Young patriarch, the golden pill can only be made by a mage who is at least proficient in the Tao of alchemy and has cultivated the fire magic. I've been living in seclusion for more than 10 years. The few golden pills that I left behind have long been used up. Now, I can only rely on some crude external medicine. It's okay. Just show it to me. Wang Chen said carelessly. Shi Shigong got the order and quickly took out some yellow stuff from his room at the back. He opened it and showed it to Wang Chen. This is cinnabar. When Mao Mountain was still here, We used the best cinnabar that the Yen family offered as tribute. Now, I bought these from the pharmacy. This is mica and this is rosestone. There's also grain, actinolite, cinnabar, red stone resin. Good heavens, tin, lead, iron, aluminum, sulfur, copper, mercury, silver, platinum, and gold, almost all of them. Wang Chen was dumbfounded. He said in horror, "That's all? Ganoderma? Ginseng? Sealwort? Haven't those Taoists and Taoists died of heavy metal poisoning after eating these?" Shi Gong was confused. Ganoderma? Sealwort? Young patriarch, you may not know that these are all nonsense. These things can be used to make secret medicine. But if you want to make the immortal golden pill that can help improve your magic power, how can you use these easily decayed plants and herbs? Since ancient times, gold and stone have been used to make pills. Shi Gong sighed. However, the ancients did not leave behind the key point. These golden pill items are highly toxic to people without magic power. Before Taoism became divine, many people died because of it. Later, the Taoists realized that these items can only be consumed by people with magic power to increase their magic power. We Taoists who have just acquired magic power have to be careful when consuming them. This is because the poison will corrode our bodies. Only when we reach the Taoist realm and gain wisdom, can we look inside our bodies and use our magic power to eliminate the poison. That's why Taoists created the recipe to make the golden pill according to the characteristics of magic power to minimize the poison. As he spoke, Shi Gong sighed. When Mao Mountain was still here, we didn't need to take these kinds of external medicine. They were all refined golden pill, which has very little poison. Our magic power improved by leaps and bounds. Now that I've taken so many external medicine with strong poison, I'm afraid I'm deeply poisoned. Wang Chen sighed. You really don't play by the rules. When Shi Gong used the secret medicine, Wang Chen was amazed that he had opened the prerequisite skills of the cultivation skill tree. But now the skill tree was so crooked. In order to let Wang Chen understand magic power more directly, Shi Gong was ready to show him. Shi Gong picked up a piece of yellow paper and held it for a long time until his face turned red. Suddenly, a ball of flame rose from the yellow paper. It was not even as big as the flame of a magician's fire paper. Even if he used magic power, Wang Chen was speechless. It's not as good as those people who play tricks and put white phosphorus on the yellow paper. The old Taoist's face turned red. Wang Chen didn't know whether it was because he was holding his breath or because he was ashamed by Wang Chen's words. Chapter 821. Old Taoist Shi returned to his own room and searched for a long time before he finally found the magic item that he treasured as much as his life. Wang Chen took it in his hand and looked at it. It was a palm-sized bronze bell. On the outside of the bronze bell, there were carvings of dragons and tigers, mythological beasts that could suppress evil spirits. Wang Chen tossed the bronze bell in his hand and felt that it was a little heavy in his hand. It seemed that it was not just made of bronze. Looking at the inside of the bell, there were mysterious patterns of varying lengths engraved with silver thread as the core and lead thread wrapped around it. These patterns were interconnected and outlined, forming a very complex integrated pattern. This is a ritual implement? Wang Chen found it hard to believe. Shi Gong explained, "Young patriarch, this corpse-chasing bell is the only ritual implement I have." The corpse-chasing bell was originally a ritual implement used by the outer sect disciples of Lower Mao Mountain to drive corpses away. Combined with the incantation, even the weakest disciples could drive the corpses away day and night, traveling hundreds of miles to provide materials for refining the corpses of Lower Mao Mountain. It is a ritual implement that every disciple of Lower Mao Mountain has. This ritual implement is widely spread, and it is not unique to Lower Mao Mountain. Although I have lost my senses, with the power of this ritual implement, I can still drive the corpses away a little. Old Taoist Shi Gong said as he pushed open the lid of a coffin. He lifted up a corpse that had been concocted with a secret medicine and ordered his young disciple to bring a few extremely tough bamboo poles. Sure Gong bent the bamboo poles into the shape of a bow and tied them to the corpse's spine, forming a bow-shaped frame to support the corpse. After he was done, there was a bamboo pole behind the corpse to support it. The corpse's legs formed a triangular frame, and the corpse's hands were stretched out flat and tied with the bamboo poles. When everything was ready, there was a spring-like frame behind the corpse. Sure Gong picked up the corpse-chasing bell and began the ritual. He closed his eyes and shook the bell in his right hand, causing the bell to make all kinds of loud and short noises. These noises were unusually messy and rarely the same. When the bell made a short, rapid ringing sound, the corpse suddenly twitched all over. Driven by its limbs, the bamboo pole bent downward, and when it returned to its original position, the corpse bounced up. It looked as if the corpse had jumped. Wang Qin was startled by the commotion. He looked at Sure Gong, who seemed to have found a key. He kept trying to adjust the frequency of the bell that made the zombies react. At this time, Wang Qin finally saw it. It seemed like the corpse-chasing bell had a special reaction to a certain frequency and timbre. Whenever the bell sounded close to that frequency, its limbs would twitch. At this time, the corpses had been forced to jump around in the courtyard by the constant adjustment of the bell from the division master's palace. Wang Qin had already figured out the trick. It turned out that Sure Gong was constantly adjusting the tone of the bell to find the frequency that would work on the walking dead. Then, he would try to adjust the frequency and tone around this frequency to test the reaction of the walking dead. Then, he could shake the bell to control the direction of the walking dead, the frequency and the size of their steps, and drive them to walk freely. Is this what it means to drive corpses? Wang Qin said in surprise. The different sounds of the bells control different walking corpses. That kind of bell can only control one dead body, and the corpse drivers can transport dozens or even hundreds of walking corpses at a time. Does it mean that they also control the walking corpses one by one with the bell? Sure Gong stopped the bell and said shamefully, "It didn't need to be like this before. As long as I practiced a corpse-controlling spell, I could unify the sounds of the corpses and control all the corpses with only one sound. Now, it's only because this spell has been lost that I have to do this. Many of your spells have been lost. No, I should say, except for a few basic things, almost all the things related to magic power have been lost." Wang Qin sighed, and this corpse driving doesn't look like driving the corpses, but uses the elasticity of the bamboo pole to hypothesize a delicate mechanical structure, which makes the twitching of the corpses into a forward elastic force. And the method to make the corpses twitch is the stimulation of the bell. Wang Qin frowned. I've heard of the frog jumping reaction. After the lower body of a frog is cut off, the wire of the current is connected to the frog's nerve. After the electricity is applied, the legs of the dead frog will bounce. This is a small experiment to explain the nerve reflex and bioelectricity. This corpse driving, why does it look like the bioelectricity that stimulates the corpses? Wang Qin picked up the corpse-driving bell and looked at the suspicious lines on the inner wall of the bell, his eyes more doubtful. Although the feeling of this law is a little different, the essence is the same as that of integrated circuits. This is an integrated circuit that uses different standards and even has a slightly different development direction. If we analyze it from a scientific point of view, the corpse-driving bell stimulates the residual bioelectricity in the corpses through sound waves. No, it should be electromagnetic waves, which stimulates the corpses to produce a stress response. Through the external mechanical structure, the kinetic energy of the corpse's twitching is transformed into elastic potential energy, and then into the kinetic energy of the bounce. This is the secret of the corpse-driving bell. And the electromagnetic waves of the corpse-driving bell are generated by the changes in the electric current and magnetic field caused by the vibration. The timbre and audio frequency are actually a symbol of the frequency of the electromagnetic wave. Through the sound waves that people can hear, it translates the information of the changes in the electromagnetic waves. This magic instrument, made by the cultivators of the Ming dynasty, is it also a technological product, like the Zhen song of the ancient magic treasure I have? Or is the essence of this magic instrument, the corpse-driving bell, a long-range bioelectricity stimulator that is controlled by the vibration? Wang Chen was already convinced by his reasonable and scientific deduction, but he still had a question. Then, where did Duke Jiao, a man of the Ming dynasty, learn the technology of stimulating the bioelectricity and electromagnetic wave emission of corpses? Wang Chen couldn't help but look at his Zhen song. This magic instrument. Wang Chen sighed with emotion. Maybe I already have some ideas. Shi Gong was overjoyed. He had repeatedly demonstrated the secret arts of Mao Mountain to Wang Chen, but unfortunately, the owner of the ancestral iron coffin, the fundamental treasure of Mao Mountain, had no clue about the Taoist arts that Grandmaster Jiao had comprehended from the wondrous coffin. Even Wang Chen was a little nervous. He knew that the only reason Shi Gong and his disciples worshipped him as their grandmaster was to revitalize Mao Mountain. If he continued to be incompetent, Shi Gong would turn against him sooner or later. Although Wang Chen, who had a gun in his chest, was not afraid of this half-baked Taoist priest, he still felt a little heartache when he saw the first force he encountered after coming to this world rebelling, which was not easy to subdue. Chapter 822. Wang Chen had planned to let the zombie lie in the chamber first, so that he could use the data from the life monitoring program inside to find out the electromagnetic wave frequency and effect principle that triggered the bioelectric reaction of the zombie. But when he returned to the chamber, he realized that the life scanning program did not necessarily require the zombie to lie in the chamber. In fact, the monitoring of the neurobioelectricity data, whether it was the quantum bistable scanning radar or the collection nanobots in the chamber, could be easily obtained. Wang Chen pushed the zombie to the front of the silo and climbed in to operate it. Shi Gong and his disciples saw a tiny red ray shoot out from an external port of the silo and scan the zombie. Wang Chen, who was in the silo, saw a realistic projection of human data appear on the glass screen. Fortunately, the chamber was different from the cutting-edge medical equipment in Wang Chen's previous world. There were no English abbreviations and special terms. This was a pure and clean operating system in Chinese. The occasional English letters did not hinder Wang Chen's understanding at all. After searching for a long time in the data page, Wang Chen finally found the page that represented neurobioelectricity. Thanks to the idiot-like operation of the high-tech products, thanks to the operating system in Chinese with explanations, thanks to the humanized design of the chamber, Wang Chen finally tried the idiot-like scientific research. As a graduate student of the Chinese department, he might not be good at other scientific research, compared to his peers in science and engineering, but his comprehension ability was completely qualified. He first determined the stress band of the zombie's bioelectricity to electromagnetic waves, then pulled up the relevant information about human bioelectricity and electromagnetic wave research inside the chamber. He determined an electromagnetic wave model that came with the chamber. This electromagnetic wave model was highly permeable to the human body, and it was the massage function of the chamber. Among more than 10,000 models, this was the scientific information about the electromagnetic wave adjustment massage function. There were precedents of electromagnetic wave massage. When Wang Chen was a child, there were popular health electromagnetic wave pillows, magnetic blankets, and electromagnetic wave therapy devices that could emit electromagnetic waves to warm up the place where the massage head came in contact with. There were all kinds of civilian scientists who had successfully invented them, and all kinds of health care products associations recommended them. Even more recently, there were still people who would occasionally shout electromagnetic health research by the National Academy of Sciences on TV shopping channels. Finally, he used the quantum computer in the warehouse to build a complete set of electromagnetic wave interference bioelectric model. Wang Chun followed the instruction manual and used the small 5D printer that came with the warehouse. This was specially provided for the people in the warehouse to make simple tools on a relatively primitive and desolate planet. There was no doubt that the Great Ming Dynasty was such a primitive and desolate planet. The Earth before Wang Chen's time travel could also be counted as such. It seemed that in the eyes of the manufacturer of Haigang, a planet civilization that could not smash a small cold fusion device with a hammer was not a normal planet. With Wang Chen's rudimentary knowledge of electricity, even with a 5D printer, it was already very difficult for him to print an electromagnetic wave-emitting device. At this moment, Wang Chen deeply felt his lack of knowledge and IQ. The final product was a small silver handle that looked like a flashlight. It had a switch that looked like a flashlight and a transmitter that looked like a flashlight cover. It was for the convenience of an upright ape in the pre-information age to use it the way he was most familiar with, the idiot style. After a busy night, Wang Chen finally made a magic weapon that imitated the corpse-chasing bell. He briefly demonstrated it to Shi Gong. Wang Chen shone the flashlight on a few corpses for a moment. In this world, the flashlight resonated with the stress magnetic field of their bioelectricity. Then, Shi Gong's headache of controlling only one corpse with one bell was solved. The switch of the flashlight could adjust the color of the light. When the light turned red, the corpses would stop. When the light turned green, they would go. As long as they followed the light, they could change the walking frequency and movement of the corpses. The electromagnetic waves that could cause the bioelectricity stress reaction were all controlled within the range of the green light. The darker the color, the greater the intensity, the more violent the reaction of the corpses. However, it would seriously damage the nervous system of the corpses, so the frequency should be maintained at the best medium. Finally, there was some progress in restoring the Taoist inheritance of Maoshan Mountain. But there was no time to wait. When Wang Chen finished his demonstration, the east had already turned bright. Although the old Taoist Shi Gong was excited, at this moment, he finally remembered the trouble that would hasten his life. He said to Wang Chen, "Young patriarch, although it is worth congratulating us for restoring the corpse-chasing secret left by Patriarch Jiu, I'm afraid the people of Shangqing Palace have already known some of our origins because my disciple accidentally leaked it. Shangqing Palace covets the treasure left behind by our patriarch. They will certainly not let us go. Now that the person supporting them hasn't arrived yet, let's bury your coffin first. We'll lie low for a while. When the people of Shangqing Palace return empty-handed, we'll find a chance to take back the magic weapon." Wang Chen frowned and said, "You've told me so many marvelous Taoist methods and magic arts. If we bury the iron coffin, don't tell me those powerful people in Shangqing Palace have no way to find it?" Shi Gong hesitated and said, "Although the people of Shangqing Palace can guess some of our origins, they don't know that my disciple leaked the treasure left behind by our patriarch. Few people in Lower Maoshan know that the treasure left behind by our patriarch is a coffin. They found out that we have the magic weapon left behind by our patriarch. But Lower Maoshan was so glorious in those days that it must have had a lot of treasures. I'm afraid the Shangqing Palace won't go through so much trouble for it. As long as we're careful, it shouldn't be difficult to deal with it. This is only one of the possibilities. If there are no ifs and the Shangqing Palace sends powerful people to search the memorial hall, how effective can the little tricks we left behind be? At that time, if the treasure left behind by our patriarch is lost, who can bear the responsibility? And the iron coffin is mine. I'll never give it up." As far as Wang Chen was concerned, the Black Granary might be hiding the secret of his time travel and even his return home. In the Black Granary there were few things that could hurt him. With this escape route, Wang Qin would never risk losing the Black Granary and avoid a head-on conflict with the Shangqing Palace. Shigong's expression changed several times. Obviously, he was very conflicted. Looking at Wang Qin's determined expression, he had to bow his head and say, "As you wish, young patriarch. Anyway, if I can't defeat the Taoist priests of the Shangqing Palace, I'll go to the warehouse and sleep for 100 years. With this idea in mind, Wang Qin said resolutely, "We can't avoid the people from the Shangqing Palace, nor can we escape. The only thing we can do now is to kill them all. With lightning speed, kill the people from the Shangqing Palace to buy time for us to move the ancient magic weapon." Chapter 8:23. Hearing this, the old Taoist Shigong pondered for a long time. Fear flashed across his face for a while, and then ferociously, as if he had fallen into an inner demon. His memory seemed to have returned to that night 19 years ago, when his little disciple looked confused and didn't seem to understand what Wang Qin meant. Wang Qin just looked on coldly, but in a place where the master and disciple couldn't see. His hand holding the gun was soaked with cold sweat. As soon as Shigong said no, he would pull out the gun and shoot the two of them here. Then, he would find a way to hide Gui Tsang, lie in it, and sleep until the 21st century. Because Wang Qin had calculated in his mind that if Shigong refused to risk his life, the possibility of success of this plan would be pitifully small. As for the other way out, abandoning Haitsong and relying on his identity as the young Grandmaster of Maoshan Mountain to roam the world, Wang Qin had long given up on this idea. Once Wang Qin made up his mind and made a choice, he would never allow himself to hesitate. When the opportunity arose, he could not make up his mind. Therefore, since he had rejected this option after careful consideration, he would no longer consider it. Therefore, he could either unite with Shigong and the others and kill the people of Shangqing Palace when they came, or kill Shigong and his disciple and escape into the escape capsule. Since the escape capsule had been in the hands of Master Jiu of Maoshan Mountain for so many years, it might be possible to continue to wait for an opportunity in Shangqing Palace. Sometimes, one's path was not chosen by oneself, but whether one could do the best or not depended on one's own ability. This was the situation for Wang Qin at this time. Shigong's attitude determined whether he would take the risk or retreat. But whether it was the former or the latter, he must be fully prepared. If he wanted to take a risk and kill the enemy, he had to first create an internal cause. By eliminating internal contradictions, he could solve external contradictions. This was what Wang Qin learned from the Ma-Zhe theory in college. For some reason, these memories were especially clear at this critical moment. Wang Qin vaguely remembered that in the early struggle history of a party, a leader had put forward a series of tactical ideas. It mentioned that most of the contradictions in the world were composed of internal and external causes. Generally, they could be eliminated by solving the internal cause. The way to solve the internal cause was to continuously clarify and refine the cause of the problem and the various steps to solve the problem. If a problem needed 100 steps to be solved, then one step at a time, the problem would be solved. From a philosophical point of view, this method was to start from the actual object, to explore the internal relations of things and the regularity of their development, and to understand the essence of things. Simply put, it was to seek truth from facts. If Division Commander Gong wavered and could not make up his mind to fight to the death, then Wang Qin would have a fatal weakness in terms of intelligence, organization, and execution. As long as Division Commander Gong hesitated at a critical moment, he would be dragged into a bottomless abyss. The foundation for the execution of the entire plan would no longer exist. Even if the chief palace was determined, he still had to carefully and conscientiously collect information, formulate a plan, and carry it out step by step. In this way, even if things developed into the worst situation, Wang Qin could still escape unscathed. If the division commander's palace wavered, in that case, Wang Qin also had a job to do. erase all intelligence and information about himself. To ensure the greatest degree of his safety in the Black Barn, it was best not to let the people of Shangqing Palace know the truth, especially the fact that he had been awakened. In that case, Shangqing Palace, who had learned the key information, was likely to spend a great deal to find a way to get Wang Chen out of the Black Barn. Although it was very likely that they would be doing something useless, Wang Chen could not give them this reason to bear such a risk. In that case, Division Commander Gong and his disciple must die. Wang Chen carefully observed Division Commander Gong's every move, coldly calculating the possibility and plan of his sudden attack to kill the master and his disciple. He silently thought about the route to dodge and retreat, and analyzed Division Commander Gong psychologically and physiologically. Old Taoist Shi Gong could not imagine how harmless he was. At least, he did not show much lethality. The mysterious immortal from the upper realm, the young patriarch of Mao Mountain whom he had just worshipped, was coldly thinking about how to kill him. In fact, Wang Chen had considered all the things that he had never thought about. In particular, he had used his identity to establish a psychological blind spot for old Taoist Shi Gong, causing him to die even more unprepared. Shi Gong had fallen into a nightmare. His whole body was drenched in cold sweat. Apparently, what happened 19 years ago was still haunting him like a nightmare. His eyes turned white and his body trembled. Suddenly, he screamed, which made Wang Chen almost pull out his gun. But what he shouted was, "Kill them!" With tears in his eyes, Division Commander Gong kowtowed and said, "Since the young master wants to kill the people of Shangqing Palace, Division Commander Gong will do it. As long as the incense of Lower Maoshan still exists, it doesn't matter even if I die. I should have died 19 years ago. Now I live like a ghost every day. It doesn't matter if I die. I have long wanted to run away. It's just that the inheritance of Lower Maoshan is more important than my life. That's why I've dragged out an ignoble existence until today. Now, the inheritance of Lower Maoshan is gone. The hope of reviving it is like a candle in the wind. Even if I run again, how many times can I escape? I still have the magic scrolls of my senior brothers and martial uncles, which have the power of Lower Maoshan. But my disciple only has the magic scrolls that I barely imparted to him. His magic power is mixed, and he can't even master the few remaining spells. Today I lost the magic treasure of the founder. Tomorrow I'll lose a few more spells. In a few years, when I die, Lower Maoshan will be gone. Just like that. Today, the young master has the hope of reviving it. I'll give my life to accompany him." "That's good." Wang Chen loosened the grip of the gun in his hand. His finger on the trigger did not move, but only made a virtual pull. He looked into Division Commander Gong's eyes and asked in a deep voice, "Since you're so determined, do you dare to make an oath in front of me to Master Gong Jiu?" Without hesitation, Division Commander Gong pointed to the sky and swore, "Master Gong Jiu, Disciple Division Commander Gong, today, for the inheritance of Lower Maoshan, I, Division Commander Gong, will fight to the death with Shangqing Palace. If I die, my soul will ascend to heaven and follow the founder into the netherworld. Although I have no words to say, I will show my loyalty and not make Lower Maoshan lose face. Even if I'm lucky to survive, I'll fight with my broken body to show the orthodoxy of Lower Maoshan to the world. May the founder bless me. If I break this oath, I'll never be reincarnated." "You're indeed a loyal man," Wang Chen praised. At this time, he knew it was time to make a promise to Division Commander Gong. "Heaven above, I, Wang Chen, swear today that I'll do my best to make Lower Maoshan prosper in the world. If I break this oath, let me die in the alley, and my soul will never be able to return," Wang Chen swore. He and Division Commander Gong looked at each other. Nothing needed to be said. After eliminating the biggest conflict between the two of them of mutual distrust, Wang Chen decided to solve the remaining internal factors one by one. First, he said to Division Commander Gong, That disciple of yours didn't keep his mouth shut, which led to Lower Maoshan's disaster. I know you and he depend on each other for survival and have deep feelings for each other. But his temperament is unstable, so he can't be entrusted with great responsibilities. In the future, when he inherits the orthodoxy, he'll have to go through all kinds of tests. Now that the great event is at hand, you need to keep an eye on him and not entrust him with any important task. Division Commander Gong kowtowed and promised. Wang Chun continued to instruct, "You've been running this place for more than 10 years, so you must have some connections and people you can trust. You must also have some understanding of the enemy, Shangqing Palace, which is nearby. Tell me clearly about the manpower and intelligence, how to set up the guard, find out the news of the people from Shangqing Palace, and grasp their movements. I'll arrange them one by one. I don't know much about the magic arts of Taoism, so you need to do as much as you know. Moreover, before the troops and horses move, the provisions and fodder must be prepared. Whether it's a big battle between two armies or a small battle like ours, logistical supplies must be collected and prepared. The silver you've saved for more than 10 years is our biggest reliance this time. You should know that in this world, silver is more powerful than magic power when used well. So, whether it's cheating, burning, killing, or looting, you have to gather all the silver I want." Division Commander Gong had never seen Wang Chun act so neat and tidy. Inexplicably, he suddenly had confidence in this immortal, who had always been unreliable. At least at this time, Wang Chen's performance was reliable and firm, which greatly eliminated Division Commander Gong's worries. He replied, "I've been running this place for dozens of years, so I can take out 1,859 taels of silver. If it's not enough, there are a few other big families nearby, and I also know them very well. When the time comes, I can kill their whole families. Even tens of thousands of taels of silver will not be a problem." At this time, Division Commander Gong showed a fierce look, showing some of the ruthlessness and determination of the Taoist priests of Maoshan Mountain. Wang Chen raised his eyebrows, a little not used to such a decisive killing. But he was also a person who had experienced the end of the world. This conflict with the world view determined by the influence of public opinion and education in the past 25 years. He just raised his eyebrows and let it go. He even deliberately made himself more cruel and selfish. He just said calmly, "In front of the enemy, if it's not necessary, there's no need to make more twists and turns. We don't have much time left." Division Commander Gong nodded and said, "Yes. But the key to the art of war lies in intelligence. The second is the ability to execute. And the third is the degree of preparation. Division Commander Gong, find me all the people you can control. According to their degree of trust, let them watch all the roads leading to this place. Once there is news of people from Shangqing Palace coming, send various signals. The importance of intelligence depends on the enemy and us. Our advantage is that people from Shangqing Palace come from other places, so they don't know your background and have no ears and eyes here. But if we let them meet with the local residents of Shangqing Palace, they will have a channel of ears and eyes, which will be very difficult to deal with. Moreover, we know nothing about how many people from Shangqing Palace are coming, what realm they are at, and how many magic they know. This is a big taboo in the military. If we want to get these two forces, the first is to eradicate the residents of Shangqing Palace. One is to interrogate them for information, and the other is to cut off their ears and eyes. Chapter 824. The abbot of Shangqing Palace's side courtyard is surnamed Jiang, and people call him Taoist priest Jiang. Like me, he's also a Taoist disciple and Taoist priest who has been enlightened. Shangqing Palace doesn't have many spells, and most of them were imparted by Patriarch Duke Jiao. Perhaps 19 years ago, he received some secret teachings from our lower Mao Mountain. But the Shangqing Palace is a righteous sect. Of the few true arts that we have secretly passed down from Mount Mao, poison, venom, corpse, curse, and talisman, I reckon that they only dare to collect talismans. However, they were already proficient in the most powerful of the Taoist techniques of the Taoist priest realm, the thunder arts, before they plundered us from Mount Mao's true teachings. Taoist Jiang and I have been neighbors for more than 10 years. According to my investigation, he only knows a few talisman spells and swordsmanship, but I have never heard that he is proficient in thunder magic. The side yard of Shangqing Palace on Mount Phoenix is a small Taoist temple with a total of 3 Taoist priests. In addition to Taoist Jiang, there are 2 Taoist priests who receive Taoist scripts. They only practice some martial arts and know a few exorcism talismans. They are people who follow the Taoist rituals and etiquette, so there is nothing to worry about. In addition, they also keep 8 thugs, called Taoist soldiers and outer disciples. They practice martial arts and have a rough understanding of swords, weapons, fists, and feet. Wang Chun asked Shigong to write down everything he knew in detail, and he even drew a map of the Taoist temple on Phoenix Mountain to study. He found that the most difficult thing was not to kill Taoist Jiang, but to keep it a secret. It was extremely difficult for the 2 of them to capture all the Taoists in the side yard of Shangqing Palace. Perhaps only when the whole Phoenix Mountain was locked down by the army could they have a 100% chance of success. But what Wang Chun lacked the most was people. Shigong could fool those stupid men and women to get some information and monitor the road. But if he wanted to take them to kill people, they were not enough. He raised this question. Shigong pondered for a moment and suddenly raised his head. Every morning and evening, especially the morning class, all the members of Taoist temple have to go to the main hall to chant scriptures and listen to the master's lecture. Then we'll catch them all at once. Wang Chun made the decision. As for the defense, the Taoist temple was not a military camp, so the Taoist priests of the Shangqing Palace would never expect that the remnants of Mao Mountain would dare to come to the temple like the division commander palace, so the defense was certainly inadequate. This was also where Wang Chun's advantage lay. As long as the preparations were perfect, he believed that it would not be difficult. After a moment of contemplation, Wang Chun asked again, "The external disciples of the Shangqing Palace are skilled in martial arts. Getting rid of them is like cutting off one of Taoist Jiang's arms. Do you have any good ideas?" Shigong pondered for a moment before replying, "We can use lightning techniques." He knew that Wang Chun did not know Taoist magic, so he explained in detail. The ancient necromancers could make the sound of thunder when they made elixirs. After the Taoist magic manifested, they used elixirs as the foundation and refined it with magic power. When the gunpowder turned into thunder, it was called fire thunder. The fire thunder was the lightning technique, which was very convenient to eliminate evil and protect the Taoist doctrine. Taoist priests could even kill Taoists with lightning technique. The imperial court used gunpowder as the army and appointed Taoist officers to control it. In the past, when Xiaobai rebelled, Li Rusong put down the rebellion in 3 months with 300 soldiers of the mighty army with guns and fire thunder. When Neon invaded Korea, it was Li Rusong, Ma Gui, and the others who used Pingbo, Zhenyuan, Yushu, Shunshao, Dadong, Xiandu, Polaris, Tai, and other divine thunders to obliterate hundreds of miles in the sea battle. Countless Neon battleships were sunk, which made Neon terrified. The king of Neon sent a letter to the head of his general, Toyotomi Hideyoshi, asking for his surrender. Wang Chun felt a little dizzy. Putting aside the miraculous changes of the Taoist priests becoming firearms experts and the Taoist temples turning into arms dealers, he could ask about what these Taoist priests and Zhenren had done to the little girl in history later. The most important thing now was that these Taoist priests and Zhenren had imitated the god race in the Ming dynasty. Bang! Bang! What level did the Taoist priests upgrade the gunpowder, and what was the role of the magic power? Wang Chun felt so confused that he had to start from the beginning. "Do you know thunder method?" Shigong said respectfully, "I know a little. Thunder method is forbidden by the imperial court. Among the 5 elements of thunder, Maoshan specializes in Gui water heavenly thunder. Fire thunder is the foundation of thunder method and everyone knows a little. But I don't know the 1st wood thunder, 7th gold thunder, and 5th earth thunder method. How to refine Gui water heavenly thunder? Wang Chen asked in a low voice. Now, are you sure you can refine it? Shi Gong said in a low voice. The key to refining Gui water heavenly thunder is genuine water. Gui water is the thunder of genuine water. It uses myriad thunder water as the base and bone-corroding real water. Using magic power to control these 2 kinds of real water to refine cotton, you can get morning jade thunder. Using myriad thunder water to refine fat, you can get North Pole thunder. Using myriad thunder water to refine earthly real water, you can get interior realm thunder. Wang Chen was a little confused by these genuine water, but he still wanted to give it a try, so he asked Shi Gong to fetch the raw materials to refine the heavenly thunder. Shi Gong was a little embarrassed and said, "It's difficult to refine genuine water, and even more difficult to preserve it. Young patriarch, please give me some time and allow me to buy the necessary metal and stone medicines to refine it." Wang Chen just said lightly, "Sure. But you need to remember that the lives of you and your disciple are tied to this. If you are 1 step late, there will be people from Shangqing Palace to deal with you, even without me punishing you." Shi Gong knew what was good for him. He had his own channels for the metal, stone, and medicine he needed for his cultivation, so he took the silver and left. When the sky was bright, he came back with a horse carriage with a lot of metal, stone, and ores on it, and even 2 slices of pork. Shi Gong ordered the 2 foolish men who followed him to cut off the fat on the 2 slices of pork and use them to refine oil. He carried a bucket of mysterious liquid and carefully carried it into the house. When he opened the lid, Wang Chen smelled a pungent smell and asked Shi Gong again. This was the bone-corroding real water he mentioned just now. Shi Gong explained, bone-corroding real water was called green vitriol in ancient times because it could only be made with rice vinegar and green vitriol before the Taoist magic showed its divinity. Later, when bone-corroding real water gradually became an important external medicine for Taoism, immortals used secret methods to extract this real water from iron ore. Speaking of iron ore, Wang Chen suddenly realized that this thick liquid seemed to be odorless, but it had a faint special stimulating feeling. Wasn't it sulfuric acid? Wang Chen's face was blank. He pointed at the bucket of sulfuric acid with impurities and asked, "Is this the bone-corroding real water you mentioned?" Shi Gong didn't know why he asked this question, so he answered uneasily, "Yes. It's really bone-corroding." Wang Chen's tone was slightly cold, and he continued to ask, "Then is the all-transforming thunder water also extremely corrosive like the bone-corroding real water, and it's made by refining saltpeter?" Shi Gong answered in surprise, "Grandmaster, you're right. That's true." Wang Chen said excitedly, "Calling nitric acid all-transforming thunder water is really creative. Nitric acid is the mother of explosives, and almost all explosives need to undergo nitrification. No wonder it's called all-transforming thunder water. Using oil to undergo nitrification. Isn't that nitroglycerin? Arctic true thunder nitroglycerin? What's earthly water? Is the interior true thunder picric acid or RDX? Shi Gong answered in confusion. The earthly water is refined from the mysterious evil spirit, which was called petroleum in ancient times, fierce fire oil. It's condensed from the mysterious evil spirit underground. It's like oil, black and thick, and it burns when it meets fire. Petroleum! Wang Chen gasped. The cornerstone of the chemical industry. You've all learned how to refine petroleum. Refining the mysterious evil spirit can produce several kinds of true water, but it's controlled by the imperial court, and only a few top-secret mines can produce it. The way Wang Chen looked at Shi Gong was as if he was looking at a living god. Only now did he understand why it was written in the Taoist scripture of the thunder method. Illegal force is uncontrollable, and mortals who practice it will be smashed to pieces. It turned out that the Taoists were all people who refined nitroglycerin explosives by hand. Even with this level, they were still a group that needed the government to maintain stability and unity in the 21st century. The style of the Taoists in this world seemed a little wrong. Thinking of this, Wang Chen felt his feet go numb, and he almost wanted to run away. Anyone who had a Taoist priest beside them who was using concentrated sulfuric acid to process saltpeter to prepare the 10,000 transformation lightning water, nitric acid, and who was refining grease, preparing to undergo a saponification reaction and then using the 10,000 transformation lightning water to refine grease to produce the North Pole true thunder, nitroglycerin, would have this reaction. Chapter 825. Although the ancient books claimed that supernatural power could greatly increase the stability of the northern pole true thunder, nitroglycerin, this kind of extremely unstable liquid explosive that would explode under the influence of gravity and at a temperature of 130 degrees Celsius, still made Wang Chen avoid it. This thing was extremely unstable and difficult to transport. No wonder these Taoist priests did not dare to carry the true thunder with them, even though they knew that the thunder method was extremely powerful. Shi Gong said that the thunder method was extremely difficult to practice and extremely dangerous. Generally, only Taoist officials at the level of Taoist priests dared to practice it. Very few Taoist priests were proficient in the thunder method. Moreover, the external medicine needed for the thunder method of the 5 elements, including all kinds of true water, true gold, true earth, and divine iron, were all things controlled by the imperial court and were extremely precious. If it were not for the fact that Shi Gong had a lot of connections and was most familiar with these unorthodox methods, it would be absolutely impossible for him to get these external medicine needed for practicing the thunder method unless he was a Taoist official of the imperial court or a Taoist priest from a few major sections. It was said that the divine thunder of annihilation, refined by Jinren, even required the use of luminous pearls and several kinds of extremely precious spirit stones. The most remarkable feature of these spirit stones was that they could emit all kinds of brilliance in the dark. They were extremely precious, and were the natural ingredients and materials used by Jinren to refine their supernatural power and refine the divine thunder. Ordinary people would be in danger of dying if they even saw it, let alone touching it. Jinren controlled their flying swords and beheaded people from thousands of miles away. Some even carried the divine thunder on their flying swords and released the thunder from thousands of miles away, which could corrode hundreds of miles away. The reason why the several Grand Master Jinren of the evil sects could make the imperial court wary of them was largely because of this. Of course, this was not the only thing that made the imperial court wary of Jinren with their great magical powers. In the Great Ming Dynasty, only the sects led by Jinren could be rewarded by the imperial court. These were the reasons why they were born. These rumors made Wang Chen feel even more strange, especially the one about the divine thunder. Shi Gong once mentioned that the Jianzhou women were savages who once got the 13 mechas from outer space to start an army and pillaged the border of Jianzhou. Jianzhou women rebelled from time to time, but under the leadership of Li Chengliang, the valiant general, when Wang Gao, the powerful chieftain of Jianzhou, rebelled, Li Chengliang slaughtered all the people and animals in his tribe. His son wanted to avenge his father, but he was killed by Li Chengliang again. None of his descendants survived. Only the slave chieftain, Wild Swine Nuerhachi, was originally a slave of Li Chengliang's adopted son. Because his father was mistakenly killed while leading the Ming army led by Li Chengliang to quell Wang Gao's rebellion, Hachi searched for Liaodong and found 13 mechas from outer space. The Wild Swine Nuerhachi was killed by Li Chengliang when his father was killed by the Divine Thunder when he led the Ming army to quell Wang Gao's rebellion. Li Chengliang searched Liaodong and found 13 mechas from beyond the sky. Then he rebelled against the Ming dynasty. At the beginning, he attacked the city and broke the stronghold with great momentum. The imperial court ordered 6 Chuanzhenjinren to bombard Liaodong with the divine thunder. They destroyed more than 20 cities of Jianzhou Nuji with the divine thunder. The cities were destroyed by the divine thunder and the bodies of Jianzhou Nuji were burned to ashes. Nur-Ha-Chi wore the divine armor from beyond the sky and only 6 people followed him. The imperial court only found 6 broken armors in Jianzhou. In the past few years, there had been no news of him. It is said that the reason why the imperial court made such a big fuss was because of the 13 extraterrestrial heavenly armors that Nur-Ha-Chi found. I once heard from the patriarch that the reason why the imperial court of the great Ming dynasty could suppress our Taoism and the heterodox and evil sects in the world was not only because our Taoism regarded it as the orthodoxy, but also because the imperial court had obtained the arsenal of the ancient holy emperor and heaven and earth. There were many holy emperor armors that were not inferior to our Taoism's ancient magic treasures. There were also magic treasures left by mighty people like Guangchengzi. In terms of foundation, they were not inferior to Taoism. The brocade guards of the imperial court monitored the world and guarded against the Taoism in Jianghu. They were guarded by mighty people like Shinran. Later, when Taoism entered the imperial court and Taoists became officials, they were even more powerful. Young Patriarch, although the imperial court is bloated and slow, if we really attract the attention of the embroidered uniform guards, they might be even more difficult to deal with than Shangqing Palace. Shi Gong was a little worried, but he was not very nervous. He sighed and said, "Fortunately, the embroidered uniform guards are more afraid of the Chuanzhen Taoism than us. As long as they don't touch the nobles of the 2 capitals, the aristocratic families will not be a problem." There were some things in Shi Gong's words that he did not make clear. However, Wang Chen was a master of literature who was familiar with history. Combining it with the political situation of the Ming dynasty at that time, he quickly understood. The embroidered uniform guards and the East and West factories did not cause us trouble. I think there are more reasons than these. Maybe we even have a tacit understanding with them when we leave Mount Mao. Shi Gong raised his head in surprise. How did you know that, young patriarch? The politics of the imperial court is nothing more than the imperial power and the prime minister's power. The embroidered uniform guards are the emperor's men, and the East and West factories are all eunuchs, who are also the imperial power's lackeys. Then, how can the officials in the imperial court keep the emperor in check? Wang Chen sneered and said, "On one hand, they will be a hindrance, on the other hand, they will take advantage of the emperor. But these are all small branches. Fundamentally, we need to have a Taoist power that can keep the emperor in check." Chuanzhen Taoism and Jingyi Taoism are originally rooted in the local areas, so it is easy for them to unite with the gentry. The local gentry and the court officials have a close relationship. Although there are differences, such as tax collection, but they are like lips and teeth, and it is time for them to unite and fight against the overly powerful imperial power. Shi Gong sighed and said, "Young patriarch's eyes are sharp. Although you have been trapped in the coffin for decades, you can talk about the world as if you are reading the lines on your palm. But there is one thing. Patriarch asked me before, do the Buddhists have any divine sense? I answered that there is none. But there is one party, although not belonging to the Buddhists, they have a close relationship with them. They are also one of the forces after the divine sense. This is the evil force that is on the same level as Mount Mao, the White Lotus sect, also known as the Luo sect. The White Lotus sect is half Buddhist and half Taoist. I don't know what kind of opportunity they have, but they call themselves the Ajati matriarch who descended to the world to teach the people. They have also produced many great divine sense of the Jinren generation, and they are called messengers. The White Lotus sect has 12 messengers, and 6 of them have been confirmed by the embroidered uniform guards. Including a leader and a saintess, there are actually 8 Jinren. Speaking of which, they are just below the headquarters of Chuanjian Taoism, and are slightly more powerful than Jingyi. However, they claim to want to overthrow the court and build a Buddhist country on earth. They really have a hometown, which is a big problem for the court. They are the main enemies of the East and West Depot, the embroidered uniform guards, and the Imperial Army. They have been repeatedly suppressed, and a few messengers have died. Now there are only 6 messengers. Although the imperial power is strong, there are civil officials and gentry colluding with Taoism, and there is the rebellion of the Luo sect outside. They even want to pacify the borders from time to time. Naturally, they look down on the unorthodox sects like us. Sometimes they even use us to discuss the real Taoist sections. Shi Gong sighed and said, however, the number 1 sect in the world is still the imperial court. Although the Luo sect is strong, it is only a small threat. If it is not for the gentry and civil officials who secretly hold them back, their situation would be 10 times more difficult. The imperial court, Taoism, Luo sect, and the Jurchen. Wang Chen took a deep breath and said, "It is indeed a grand world. After the divine Taoism manifests, it is actually so exciting. As exciting as it is, that is a matter for the future." Shi Gong bowed and said, "Young patriarch, the most important thing now is to eradicate the phoenix and go to the Shangqing Palace's side yard. With the embroidered uniform guards and the 2 depot keeping them in check, the Shangqing Palace will not be able to send any powerful people. This is not a difficult task. But if the fact that we have the treasure left behind by Patriarch Zhou is leaked, we will never have a day of peace. At that time, the various forces of the imperial court and the messy sects of the Luo sect will come knocking on our door." Wang Chen stood up and tiptoed to pick up a bag of white floating soil. He threw it to the old Taoist Shi Gong and said, "First, by some external medicine according to this." Shi Gong said doubtfully, "This white calamity soil is used by the kiln factories to make porcelain. In the Taoist sects it is only used to make glaze. It can make the green glaze clear. What is the use of this?" Wang Chen came to the front of the silo and said in a low voice, "Just do it. I have a kind of thunder magic that needs it to be refined." He thought to himself, "Do you think I will tell you that I have been using the radar on the silo to analyze the raw materials you have brought? Diatomaceous earth. I remember that this thing is produced everywhere, but the best is in Jilin, which is now Liaodong. Who would have thought? With the Taoist magic and the commodity economy, even this thing has become an elixir and is sold everywhere." As a student of the Chinese language department, I do not read many scientific materials, but I have read a lot of stories about famous people. I still remember that after Nobel invented nitroglycerin explosives, because nitroglycerin liquid was not easy to transport, he later invented a safer gelatinous explosive. Diatomaceous earth was the stabilizer before he invented the gelatinous explosive. There is also nitrocellulose, which is also the true morning thunder. After being immersed in nitroglycerin, the colloid formed by nitrocellulose dissolved in nitroglycerin is called explosive glue, and it is also an important raw material for gelatinous bombs. Wang Chen sighed. "In this era where there may be people making nuclear bombs by hand, if I do not risk this 50 kilograms of meat, I can forget about being a time traveler." Chapter 8:26. The morning stars twinkled above the Phoenix Mountain, and the full moon hung high in the sky. It was a beautiful day with clear skies and sparse clouds. The mountain path twisted and turned across the hill. The dewy weeds wet Wang Chen's shoes. Wang Chen was carrying a cyan cloth package. Inside the package was a small square cake wrapped in the wrapping paper of the most famous Jinji pastry shop in Suzhou, gelatinous explosive. This made Wang Chen look like a scholar carrying snacks up the mountain, if his short hair was ignored. The finished product of the gelatinous explosives was a pale yellow powder. After mixing with nitroglycerin, It could be molded into a mud-like flour. Although it looked like a pastry, it still had a faint smell of chemical raw materials. Wang Chun covered the real bombs with icing and even added some rich spices to cover it up. Wang Chun felt regretful. If he had more time when he made the cream, it would be more convenient to cover it up with the framing of Western-style pastry. Now these real bombs looked delicious, and no one would doubt it if he said they were new products of Jinji pastry in this small town where traffic was not developed. Shigong followed Wang Chun along the path. Today they were going to do a deal of extermination, so Wang Chun had to be cautious. He was a new face, and although his short hair was a little eye-catching, the Taoist temple was not the government, and they would not stop and interrogate people. A short-haired stranger going up the mountain in the early hours of the morning was a little strange, but compared to the conspicuous target of Shigong, it was not a big mistake. After all, the Taoist priests of Shangqing Palace had never seen Wang Chun. If they could recognize him, it would be strange. The gun in Wang Chun's arms was pointed at his waist, but it gave him a strange sense of security. Wang Chun recalled the last memory he had before he traveled to this world. Blood, fire, women's cries, men's wails, and the sounds of smashing and shattering glass. Those familiar people were lying in pools of blood, being baked by the increasingly hot sun. And those cannibalistic corpses. To this day, he clearly remembered the strange feeling when he swung the iron rod and smashed the head of the corpse, whose throat was exposed to the air and had a rotten smell. At that time, he was bitten on the shin by an irritable and crazy rat. He seemed to have contracted some kind of virus. His head became heavier and heavier, and his body began to heat up. However, he could not treat himself. After leaving the neighborhood, without the protection of the walls, the first thing they had to face were the rampaging animals and corpses on the street. The survivors gathered in a remote building in the community and formed a temporary group, waiting for the government to rescue them. Gunshots kept ringing in the distance, making them afraid, but also bringing a little bit of comfort. Originally, an injured person like Wang Chun should be receiving care and treatment in the rear. The survivors collected the medicines that they and their neighbors always had, and a doctor set up an emergency room in the rear. However, when the disaster broke out, it was the working hours. The survivors in the community were old and young, and there were too few men in their prime. Wang Chun had to join in the cleaning up of the rampaging pet dogs and corpses in the community. At the very least, he had to block the gate of the community and create a second line of defense. Wang Chun did not know the cause of the disaster. He only heard that other than their city, the rest of the country was still under the control of the government, and there was no great chaos. There was also no news of a plague that could make the animals go berserk and the dead come back to life, just like the zombie virus in science fiction. This was also the reason why the survivors had the confidence to hold on until the government came to rescue them. The radio kept reminding them to go home and form an organization to wait for the rescue. Perhaps everything originated from the meteor shower that spread all over the world on the night of December 21st. The meteorite fell in Canada, within the Arctic Circle. It was said that it was an ice-based meteorite. After it disintegrated in the atmosphere, some of its fragments scattered, and one of the fragments fell into the sea near the city where Wang Chun lived. Wang Chun learned this from his friends in the group chat. Some people joked that they wanted to become meteorite hunters and search for precious meteorites that cost tens of thousands of yuan per gram. However, others immediately retorted that even if the ice-based meteorite did not burn to ashes, it should have melted in the sea. That night, the sky was as red as blood. Wang Chun's thoughts were a little far away, but when the side yard of Shangqing Palace appeared in his sight, he was still a little absent-minded. He clenched the hard wooden stick in his right hand and felt that it was heavy, a bit like the iron stick he used that day. This thing looked like the crutch used by scholars when they climbed the mountain, but it was the third weapon in Wang Chun's hand. He carefully wrapped the head of the stick with a circle of iron, hoping that the center of gravity would be more balanced when he swung it. Wang Chen waited patiently in the woods outside the side yard of Shangqing Palace for a while until the morning bell rang faintly. Only then did he feel his way to the left side of the gate of the Taoist temple. The Taoist temple was built along the mountainside, and Xingong had explained the terrain and layout of the temple to him very clearly. Wang Chen easily found a place that was easier to climb over the high wall with the help of the mountainside. He clumsily climbed up a tree and climbed over the wall. The side yard of Shangqing Palace was built along the mountainside. More than a dozen courtyards of different sizes and winding corridors were scattered according to the terrain. However, the Mountain Gate, the Three Pristines Temple, and the Yellow Emperor Temple were always built on the central axis, solemn and solemn. They were low at the front and high at the back, and the difference was even 3 or 4 stories high. First, he had to go to the fireworks yard. The Taoist fireworkers had to heat up the fire before they could go to the main hall, the Three Pristines Temple, to attend the morning classes. When the host of the morning classes recited scriptures, they had to drink tea and hot water. They also had to wash and clean. The outer disciples and ordinary Taoist children could use cold water to cope with it, but the 3 true Taoist priests had to send hot water. Therefore, the fireworks yard was the busiest yard in the Taoist temple for the morning classes every day. At this time, the hot water for washing should have been sent out and the water for the morning classes should be boiling. The Taoist priests were very quiet. In the fireworks yard, the 3 Taoist priests were busy adding firewood and boiling water, but they were orderly and silent. Although the Taoist priests in the fireworks yard were thin, their arms were full of muscles. Every day, they carried a kettle that weighed dozens of kilograms and ran around. Anyone could have a body full of muscles. Xingong also specially told them that if they could avoid killing people, they should not kill those Taoist fireworkers. After all, there were incense burning. Patriarch Duke Jiu was also a Taoist fireworker in Shangqing Palace in the past. It could be seen that the work of the Taoist fireworkers and the fireworks monk was a crouching tiger and hidden dragon. They were probably second only to the librarians of the Sutras Depository. After all, the ancestor of Taoism, Laozi Taishang Laojun, was also the librarian of the National Library of the Zhou dynasty. Wang Chen picked up the iron-clad heavy stick and waited quietly at the corner of a corridor next to the Institute of Pyrotechnic. When a Taoist priest carrying a large hot water teapot came out from inside and hurried downstairs, Wang Chen went around to the back of the Taoist priest, stood on his tiptoes, and smashed the back of the Taoist priest's neck with the heavy stick. The Taoist priest fell down the stairs together with the teapot. He seemed to be scalded by the hot water, twitched twice, and then passed out. Wang Chen flashed over from the side, carried the unconscious Taoist priest, and threw him into a wing room not far away. He hesitated for a moment and finally did not break the poor Taoist priest's neck. Most of the hot water in the iron kettle was spilled, but Wang Chen still carried it and went straight into the fireworks yard. The 2 Taoist priests were still busy boiling water, and Xingong had already followed them. Wang Chen winked at him and went straight into the yard. The 2 Taoist priests heard the noise and looked up in surprise. When they saw a strange scholar, one of them immediately stood up and asked, "Scholar, where did you come from?" Wang Chen pretended to clasp his hands and said, "I'm a scholar passing by. Because I love the scenery of Phoenix Mountain, I just asked the abbot to let me stay for a day." "Then you have to." The Taoist fire worker in front wanted to say something, but Wang Chen had already approached him. Xingong had already sneaked up from behind when Wang Chen attracted the attention of the 2 Taoist priests and hit the back of the carotid artery of the Taoist priest behind him. Wang Chen pretended to be shocked and pointed behind the Taoist priest. When he turned his head to look, the heavy stick had already hit his head. Xingong sneaked up in silence. He chose a Taoist priest with a similar figure to him and began to strip off his clothes. Wang Chen turned around and tied up the 3 Taoist fireworkers with the cowhide rope brought by Xingong. He also stuffed a mouthpiece with a condom into their mouths, which was also brought by Xingong. Wang Chun knew that stuffing a rag or something like that could be pushed out with the tongue, so the mouthpiece was more useful. So he also made a few and used them on the 3 Taoist fireworkers. As for the people behind him, Wang Chun did not want to trouble them so much and let them live. Chapter 8:27. Outside the 3 Pure Hall of the Taoist temple, the sky was already faintly turning white. A dim oil lamp was placed in front of the statues of the 3 Pure Ones, and behind it were 3 shabby yellow prayer mats. The 3 Pure Hall was not big, because the Shangqing Palace on Phoenix Mountain was originally a small Taoist temple. It was about 10 feet long, and the statues of the 3 Pure Ones were high up. There were some tables and chairs on both sides of the hall. Jiang Taichung sat on one of the chairs, thinking about something. He tiptoed to pick up the teacup on the table. It was a high-quality Longquan kiln teacup that glowed like a clamshell. The hot water is slow today, Jiang Taichung thought. I'll have to tell them later to be quick and diligent. Our sect will send people soon, so they can't be so slow. Thinking of the people from our sect, Jiang Taichung felt a little proud. This was a stroke of genius. That young disciple of the morgue often came, so he thought he was also a Taoist. Who in the entire morgue looked at him in the eye? Who knew? There was actually such a big fish behind him. Mao Mountain, heretical sects, a hidden danger to our sect. How arrogant was Chun Jiogong when he was here. Our sect had to retreat, and I heard that they even fought before. But now? If they did not join the orthodox sects, their souls would disappear, and they would not even be able to keep their orthodoxy. Taoist? Haha, how could a demon from Mao Mountain be worthy of being called a Taoist? The heavens did not give up on me. That day I just had nothing to do, so I asked jokingly. I didn't expect that the little bastard from the morgue would be able to get such important information. The remnants of Mao Mountain. Back then, Chun Jiogong was also considered an outstanding person, a commonplace person, but he was able to create such a large family business. When Mao Mountain was at its peak, there were 3 perfected masters, 19 Taoists, and hundreds of Taoist priests. It was like adding oil to a raging fire. Although it had declined now. But who could say for sure how much wealth they had left? Perhaps there would be some magic artifacts. Thinking about it, there might even be magic artifacts. Thinking of this, Jiang Taichung could not help but feel hot all over and his mouth dry. He subconsciously lifted the teacup and felt the weight in his hand lighten. Only then did he realize, the hot water is too slow today. In a while, I'll have to properly reprimand those workers. It was precisely because Jiang Taichung was worried that the 2 orphans in the morgue had magic tools, or even magic treasures, that he sent the news up. Otherwise, he, Taoist Jiang, also knew people from all walks of life. It was easy to sneak up to an old man and a child in the middle of the night and kill them, but it was not so easy to become a disciple of Mao Mountain. He was like an ancestor to all sorts of people. Otherwise, why would he bother to give the oil to those arrogant Taoist priests of his sect? Jiang Taichung sighed and raised his head. Counting the time, there was still a 1 day, 2 days, 5 days left. 5 days to rush here from Mount Mao was already an extremely fast speed. If it weren't for the fact that the Taoist priests had talismans as a means of communication, which saved them the time needed to travel from here to Mao Mountain, how could they have arrived so quickly? It wasn't even that convenient for the imperial court to send the court bulletins. Other than the east and west factories and the brocade guard, who dared to trouble the Taoist priests of the imperial court. Currently, the administrative envoys of the various provinces had not completely implemented Taoist communication. In some remote provinces, there were no Taoist priests by the side of the provincial governors, and they still had to use courier stations to deliver memorials and documents. The heavens had taken pity on them. Even the merchants of Jiangnan had a communication talisman, like the divine talisman. Jiang Taichung counted the time here. He didn't dare to send people to spy on the remnants of Little Mao Mountain. Based on the surveillance methods of the Taoist priests under him, it was more accurate to say that they were tipping off the evil Taoist priests of Lower Mao Mountain. The Taoist priests of Lower Mao Mountain were the ancestors of the unorthodox sects. At this time, the Taoist priests and Taoist children of the Tai Ching Palace's side courtyard had begun to gather in the Three Pure Temple. The other two authentic Taoist priests who had received the scripture could naturally enter the Three Pure Temple, but those Taoist children. Have you seen the Taoist children whose beards were all white? A Taoist child with well-developed muscles and skilled martial arts, whose chest and arms were even more magnificent than a woman's, were not rare either. These Taoist children could only kneel on the patio under the Three Pristine Temple with a meditation cushion. A muscular Taoist child might have woken up late, but he hurriedly rushed to the Three Pure Temple from the winding corridor. The sky was a little dark, and he saw a Taoist priest, Taoist child of the Pyrotechnics Institute, carrying a teapot, hurriedly walking towards the Three Pure Temple. The Taoist child had a hunched back, and it could be seen that he was also not young. The outer court disciple, who was called Taoist child and written as Taoist soldier, thug, and guard, intentionally bumped into the Taoist fireman, causing him to stagger. Only then did he chuckle and proudly wanted to see the embarrassing scene of the Taoist fireman protecting the teapot. However, he only saw that the Taoist fireman seemed to be in a sorry state, but in actuality, he quickly stuck to his side. The teapot that was filled with hot water was lightly held in one hand, and the other hand grabbed his face. The man felt that the big, skinny hand that grabbed his face was like a cast of iron, forcefully squeezing him. The big hand twisted slightly, and a clear crack sounded in the silent corridor. The man's head twisted at an angle that was not possible for a normal human being. The figure that looked like the Taoist fireman, with just a little force, pushed the heavy body behind a clump of weed. Wang Chen was a little further behind. He was also wearing a loose Taoist robe that did not fit him, and his face was covered with some potash. But compared with the disguise of the Taoist fireman in front of him, he was very careless. He was holding a wooden tray, covering most of his face, on which there were very delicate pastries. The pastries wrapped in white icing looked quite delicious. When Wang Chen left the Pyrotechnics Institute, he took a knife with him. After all, he was a member of the righteous sect. When cooking cattle and slaughtering sheep in a Taoist temple, there were always a few good butcher knives. The knives for slaughtering cattle and sheep were fast, and they were also very neat. If it were a Taoist temple of the Chuanjian sect, Wang Chen would be lucky to find 2 kitchen knives. But now, with the ox-eared knife in hand, the killing intent was aroused. The closer they were to the Three Pristines Temple, the more likely it was that they would encounter other Taoist priests. Before turning a corner, Wang Chen rubbed his nose and almost bumped into a Taoist boy. He let out an "ah," but before he could see clearly, Wang Chen had sent the ox-eared knife into his body. The knife was inserted obliquely from the diaphragm between his chest and abdomen, and then poured into his lungs. The Taoist boy was an adult, but he was only a few years old. His young face was a little blank, and before he understood what had happened, blood with pink bubbles sprayed from his mouth. The blood made Wang Chen's face smell of blood. Wang Chen calmly twisted the knife handle, turned it half a circle, and slowly pulled out the sharp knife. He took out a white cotton cloth from the back of his Taoist robe, carefully wiped his face clean, and continued to move forward without changing his expression. With a sharp weapon in one's chest, the killing intent was aroused. Wang Chen took 2 steps forward and turned to the patio. There were already Taoist children sitting on the patio in 2s and 3s with rush cushions, ready to meditate. Looking down, Wang Chen saw the main hall of the 3 pure lineages. Taoist Jiang and 2 other Taoists were sitting inside. The old Taoist Shigong was carrying a teapot with a dull look on his face and walking upstairs. Wang Chen lowered the tray and walked forward with a relaxed expression. When he came to the Taoist boys, His hand trembled slightly, and 2 pieces of frosted pastries fell to the ground. The Taoist next to him exclaimed in a low voice. Wang Chen pretended not to see it and continued to walk up. He saw old Taoist Shi Gong had already lifted the teapot, and someone behind him shouted. Something fell. Sugar cakes fell to the ground. In the 3 Pristines temple, Shi Gong drew the boiling hot teapot and suddenly splashed it on the faces of the 3 Taoist priests. Wang Chen lifted the tray behind him and rushed to the 3 Pristines temple at the fastest speed he had ever run in his life. In the 3 Pristines temple, Taoist Zhang's scream had just sounded, and old Taoist Shi Gong had already hit one person with the teapot at lightning speed. Wang Chen took 2 steps at a time, and a ox-eared knife directly pierced the stomach of a Taoist priest who was barely able to open his eyes. He held the Taoist priest and stabbed him 3 times. Chapter 8:28. Taoist Jiang woke up in a daze. His mind was groggy, and his empty mind was reverberating with intense pain. He struggled for a while and found that he could not move his body. The pain at the back of his head made it difficult for his brain to function properly, causing him to moan unconsciously. A series of muffled sounds, sometimes loud and sometimes soft, reached his ears. The art of torture is very exquisite. We need to rely on science. We can't get what we want with brute force. Leave everything to me, young patriarch. Let's go to Mao Mountain and come up with 180 ways to make that old thing regret living in this world. How vulgar! I've read about your unorthodox method. It's written in the books that you use to flay people. Spasm, bone marrow scraping, bamboo skewers, eye piercing, and putting a small metal brush in the urinal. It's vicious enough, but it's more about venting anger than extorting a confession. I don't approve of torturing until the target is disabled or even dead. Jianghu methods? I know you want him to be afraid of you. Cruel, terrifying, and inhumane. Most importantly, when it's time to use torture, it'll be a vengeance. Vengeance. Venting anger is the most important thing, but we're not venting anger now. We're trying to get something out of his mouth. So, let me try first, alright? Go ahead, young patriarch. We wouldn't dare to say anything. Sigh. Don't say that. It's a discussion. It's to better complete the mission and achieve the goal. I'm not using my authority to pressure you, am I right? We're discussing to get the thing out of his mouth and to better complete the mission, right? If you have to listen to me just because I'm the young patriarch, what's the point of this meeting? What about now? He'll be fine for the time being if we use my method. When it's proven that my method doesn't work, you'll do it. We won't regret it even if we cripple or kill him. Do you agree? Let's discuss this democratically and equally. You're right, young patriarch. Taoist priest Jiang was completely awake by then. He did not dare open his eyes and pretended to be unconscious, but he soon heard something that made him despair. Then, young patriarch, I'll get some water to splash him. There's no need. The young man with a strange Beijing accent said, He's already awake. Taoist Jiang felt someone walking up to him and looking at him. The young voice continued, Look, the state of the eyes under the eyelids of a person who is awake is different from that of a person who is unconscious. There was another rustling sound. Taoist Jiang felt someone pry open his eyelids, and a dazzling light shone on his eyes, causing them to sting. When there's light, the pupils will shrink, but when you're in a deep coma, the pupil's reaction to light will disappear. This is a conditioned reflex that humans can't overcome. For someone like him, who can't stop blinking in tears, it's even more so. The hand that pinched Taoist Jiang's eyelids loosened, and all Taoist Jiang could see was whiteness. He kept blinking and shaking his head, no longer trying to pretend to be unconscious. The voice asked again, Taoist priest Shi, how did you know that he was awake? Young patriarch, his shoulders are tense. The shoulders of a person who is unconscious will be more relaxed, but he's too nervous, and the expression on his face. Taoist Jiang listened to the two voices and discussed 7 or 8 ways to distinguish the features of a person's expression and posture. Finally, he could see a bit of light and shadow. Standing in front of him was an excessively young man with short hair. His expression was calm, and when he looked at him, it was as if Wang Chen looked at the only clue in his hand with relief. Healthy and sober, he had already asked other survivors in the Taoist temple and tested all kinds of knowledge about extorting confessions by torture that he had heard in his previous life. But because those clues were not as precious as those of Taoist Jiang and Abbot Jiang, he even asked Shigong to test them on Mount Mao. They used all kinds of methods which were quite bloody. But to his disappointment, the others knew very little information. This Abbot Jiang was a man with a sense of confidentiality. Except for some vague and trivial things from the mouth of another surviving Taoist, there was no real clue about the people from Shangqing Palace. Therefore, it was very necessary to ensure that Taoist Jiang could be completely healthy, calm, and tell what he knew calmly. Wang Chen's teacher Shigong said, "When extorting information, you should keep the interrogator awake and calm. You've made it so bloody and cruel that he's crazy. How can you guarantee that what he says is true, orderly, clear, and complete? It's true that we can get something out of him that way, but whether it's clear, and complete will be a mess. The brocade guard uses those methods because they don't need a clear and complete confession. It's a way to deal with superiors, get promoted, and get rich. Therefore, it has to be cruel and ruthless. People in Jianghu use these methods because they want to vent their anger and revenge. This is the method that the brocade guard uses to vent their anger as officials and people in Jianghu. But our method of doing things is different. Doing things, it has to be orderly and clear and realistic, right? According to the research of the CIA, the truth of the information obtained through torture is less than 10%. They will confess some things and make up some stories to avoid being tortured. The CIA? It's the brocade guard of another country across the sea. In this country, the brocade guard has spent so much time studying these things. I'm afraid that the officials there are more cruel than those in the Great Ming Dynasty. With such harsh laws, there will be no peace. Ha ha! Wang Qin said with a smile, it's the world's police. Naturally, it needs to be used everywhere. Taoist Jiang saw a young Taoist bring a bowl of water to Wang Qin. There was a layer of ice on the surface of the water. The young Taoist said in a crisp voice, "Grandmaster, I found their ice cellar. As you instructed, I broke it and sprinkled it into the basin." Wang Qin rolled up his sleeves and said to the old and the young beside him with a gentle smile, "I don't know why I used ice either. But seeing that they all used it, I followed suit. But it's said that with this improvement, the death rate of torture has been greatly reduced. It might have something to do with the oxygen in the blood. Now I use water without chili powder. I'm not familiar with it before, so I used chili powder first in a hurry. Besides, I didn't have a good grasp of time and didn't have a watch, so it's hard to keep track of time. That's why some people died of torture. Now that I have experience, I should be able to grasp it better." Wang Qin turned to Taoist Jiang and said, "Let's go through it first. As for the questions, I'll ask you later." Taoist Jiang saw Wang Qin lift the basin to him, and an old Taoist grabbed his hair. He said in horror, "Wait. What do you want to ask?" "I'll tell you now. I'll tell you now." Don't. Wang Qin said calmly, Don't worry. It's useless to worry. Let's go through it first. If there's something, you can tell me when I ask you." Shigong nodded and said, "That's right. Let's go through it first." Then, Taoist Jiang felt someone was pulling his scalp until it went numb. A strong force pressed his head into the basin, and the cold water splashed on his face. Taoist Jiang struggled violently, but Wang Qin and Shigong held him firmly. Wang Qin counted silently, 1, 2, 3. It was as if he was not torturing but completing a mission. Taoist Zhang's violent struggle consumed the oxygen in his blood quickly. In less than 50 strokes, he couldn't help but open his mouth to breathe and swallow hard. A large amount of water was sucked into his stomach, lungs, trachea, and bronchus, causing a strong stimulation that made him cough and vomit. But coughing in the water only made the water rush into his trachea faster. Taoist Zhang's hands, which were held down, began to struggle like a dehydrated fish. His legs kicked wildly, and he tasted the pain of his lungs and trachea burning. The little Taoist sat on his feet to prevent him from knocking over the basin. Chapter 829. After the water torture, Taoist Zhang was like a frightened bird. He kept shouting, "I'll talk, I'll talk." Wang Chen never expected that an official Taoist of the Shangqing Palace, a Taoist who had supernatural power, could be so weak. He could even go through the torture several times for those injured outer disciples. He could only sigh with emotion. It seemed that practicing martial arts could really strengthen one's willpower. He had to kindly comfort him. "Abbot Jiang, you can think about it now and sort out your memory. But the water torture, we still have to go through it. It will be over soon." Wang Chen moved a chair and a stool that had been simply modified. A wooden stake was installed vertically on the other end of the stool. This was the traditional culture that Wang Chen learned from movies and TV shows that reflected the cruelty of the old society. It was called the tiger stool. In the early years of the party's development, it was quite famous. The so-called people made of special materials came from it. Wang Chen didn't believe that the religious people and landlords in the old society could be more powerful than the members of a certain party. When Taoist Jiang was tied to the stool, he probably hadn't seen such a traditional culture, so he could still ask Wang Chen, "What on earth do you want to ask?" "You don't want to ask anything. You can't do this. You can't do this. You lunatic." Wang Chen began to add bricks under Taoist Zhang's heel. Hearing Taoist Zhang's screams, Wang Chen took out those balls and put them on him under Taoist Zhang's terrified eyes. Then, he comforted him with kind words. "This is to prevent you from biting your tongue. Don't worry, our punishment won't threaten your life. More than anyone else, we want you to live a healthy life. The punishment is to make you suffer, not to torture you. Do you understand?" Taoist Jiang looked at him in horror. Wang Chen pressed Jiang Taichung's head and sighed with emotion. "Long live your understanding. I purposely drilled a few holes in your mouth not to make you drool. I'm not that disgusting. I did it so that when the water is flushed, it can be poured in. So, this is not an insult to your character. I absolutely understand other people's character." Taoist Zhang's face was covered with saliva and snot. He widened his eyes and looked at him in horror. Wang Chen waited for Division Master Gong to add a few more bricks. When he saw Division Master Gong nod at him, Wang Chen knew this was the limit of the tiger stool. If it was raised any higher, it would hurt Taoist Zhang's body. He waited quietly for a while. To Taoist Jiang, this period of time was as long as a century. Then, Wang Chen took out a soft cotton cloth used to wipe sweat and gently covered Taoist Zhang's face. He picked up the kettle and shook the ice inside. Then, he began to pour water into the kettle unhurriedly. Taoist Zhang's body began to struggle violently again. After a long time of endless pain, Taoist Jiang was finally dragged to a modified wooden armchair. Wang Chen sat opposite him and said with a gentle smile, "Now, let's start with the questions. Did you report to the Qing Palace that there are Taoists from Lower Maoshan hiding in the righteous manor?" Taoist Jiang, who was sitting across from him, was trembling all over as he answered, "Yes. Please tell me again about the conversation you had with the little Taoist from the righteous manor, who is also Taoist Shi's little disciple." Taoist Jiang had been very obedient under Wang Chen's training in the first few rounds. In the last round of torture, Wang Chen even made him memorize the outline of the conversation, including how to state it, what to say, and what grammar to use. He had already memorized all of it. Therefore, Taoist Jiang answered very obediently. That day, on the 11th day of the 9th month of the Gui Chou year, it was at noon, no, a quarter before noon, according to Taoist Jiang's confession, he reported this matter to the Qing palace. The Golden Court Elixir Imperial Talisman of the Qing dynasty is a secret technique of the Qing palace. Its advantage is that it is cheap and easy to use. Although the heavenly hearing and earthly vision talisman can transmit sound and even images, it is a divine talisman that can only be refined by Taoists in the Taoist realm. However, the Golden Court Elixir Imperial Talisman of the Qing Palace can be refined by Taoists, but it can only transmit about 50 characters. According to Taoist Jiang's confession, the full text is as follows. The news sent by Taoist Jiang had already been read by Taoist Palace, which made him heave a sigh of relief. Although the higher-ups had guessed the identity of the Taoists from Mao Mountain, the information about the ancestral treasure revealed by his little disciple was vague and unclear. Perhaps Taoist Jiang himself did not dare to guess that the magic weapon in the hands of the two orphans in the righteous manner was the most precious treasure of Lower Maoshan, the ancestral robe of Duke Jiao, an ancient magic weapon. Not only did Wang Chun get the reply from the Qing palace through torture, but he also made Taoist Jiang confess a lot of information about the Qing palace and asked him to guess who was coming. In the end, the information obtained was relatively complete. There are only 5 people from the Qing palace this time. The lowest rank is Taoist Jiang, who is led by a Taoist, but the identities of the 4 Taoists are unknown. But the Qing palace has told us that the Taoist is a Taoist of the Qing palace with the surname Yun, Taoist Jiang's martial uncle. His Taoist name is Yunlu, and his secular surname is Gua Yunlu. His date of birth is unknown. He joined the Qing palace in the 3rd year of the Wanli calendar. He is good at talisman magic and martial arts. When he was young, he practiced the southern boxing. Later, his Taoist magic manifested, and he mastered the northern true thunder dragon chopping hand. He is the best among the Taoists in the Qing palace. When he heard this, Taoist palace was on the verge of collapsing. He said in a daze, "They actually sent Taoists here? They actually sent Taoists here? We're just a threat. Why would they do this? How vicious is the Qing palace of Mao Mountain?" Almost in despair, Taoist palace was about to rush forward and kill Taoist Jiang with his palm. But Wang Chun stopped him. "Stop panicking. You're at a loss as soon as you hear the identity of the enemy? Where is your sense of propriety? If it's a Taoist who comes, are you going to surrender yourself?" Instinctively, Taoist palace still obeyed the order of Wang Chun, the young patriarch. He was stunned and stood there in a daze. Wang Chun continued, "Gui Yunlu is a Taoist with a high status in the Qing palace. This time, he's here to wipe out the remnants of Mao Mountain. It's just along the way. Although the ancestral court of Mao Mountain is in Mao Mountain, you guys have a grudge against the Qing palace and set up a sect in Mount Luofu in Guangdong province. Later, after the Qing palace plotted against you guys, they also took over Mount Luofu. This time, the Chuanzhen sect in the north is going to invade the south. In order to protect their escape route, the Qing palace sent Gui Yunlu south to Mount Luofu to officially open the gate of Mao Mountain in southeast. So, we're actually so unlucky? Does the heavens want me to leave Mao Mountain?" Taoist palace said in grief and indignation. "There are still 5 days before Gui Yunlu and the others come here. We still have a way out." Before Wang Chun could finish, Taoist palace shook his head and said, "There's no way out, patriarch. If a Taoist comes here, we won't be able to hide the fact that we've buried the treasure of our patriarch. A Taoist knows life and death, observes the destiny of heaven, observes the minutest details, and calculates everything. The treasure of our patriarch is gone. Even if I have to die here, I can't sit back and watch the treasure of our patriarch fall into the hands of others." Taoist palace said mournfully, "If the treasure is with us, we'll live. If the treasure is lost, we'll die. Taoist Palace said resolutely.